The BET award-winning singer says the department's statement is misleading. She says it creates the impression that she received funding. Makadze says she has neither applied for nor received any funding from the department. Ditebohon Tamani, SABC News, Johannesburg.
And a new AU-led initiative to try to end the war in Sudan is due to get underway in the Ethiopian capital, Addis Ababa. The AU has been pushing for an all-inclusive dialogue, but a coalition of civilian groups known as Talakum has refused to take part. The BBC's Will Ross.
What the African Union has done is it's bringing together as many different participants as possible. It's really to come up with a common position that can then help push the leader of the Sudanese armed forces and the leader of the rapid support forces to put aside some differences, to at least talk, to try and get a proper ceasefire underway. But so far we've already seen people are just not willing to put aside their differences, even to take part in these preliminary talks.
The top story at 3, the Pretoria High Court has found that former Gauteng Health MEC Qedani Mahlangu and former head of mental health services Dr. Makgabo Manamela could have prevented the deaths of 144 patients who died in the Life Esidimeni tragedy. For SAFM News, Kimudupi Mahademel.
Coming up in news sports, Simbini and Roos Grants named Team South Africa's flag bearers for Paris Olympics. Richards Bay partners with Pakwe Group, and Alex de Minaur pulls out of Wimbledon due to injury. More details at 3:30.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So much to talk about. That's why it's called the National Pulse. You know that Mahlangu and Manamela negligently caused the deaths as per the Life Esidimeni judgment today. What's your big thoughts on that? You can connect with us right away via calling in 086 000 2032. We'll get it off your chest. Text or voice notes 0614 104 107. And if you are tweeting, you can do that right away. Hashtag the National Pulse, but tag SAFM Radio and myself. I certainly want to hear get your thoughts on that, but not just that. There's a whole range of other issues too as well. And Zimbabwe, we'll talk to him later on. He believes whether it's Parliament or the Constitution, there needs to be a rethink in terms of dealing with issues around the John Slopia one specifically. And I think there's many others that we can consider around just that. And there's more. We'll chat to Doctors Without Borders about the issues around humanitarian aid needed and support for the people of Sudan in the midst of a war in that country. And there are other issues, again, the issues of that 200 rands being charged in city of Joburg and other metros. That one will just not go away. Let's start with this, however, right? So today I was the program director at an event, part of about the SABC's radio leadership event, and Tebe Kalafang spoke at that event, and he said a couple of things that I think we need to take a note of. He said that, do you know, when they polled Africans about the most admired African brand, only 14% responded by using or naming an African brand as their most admired African brand. The balance, 86%, effectively chose a global brand that's not African as their most desired, either African brand or their most desired brand. And he made the point about this massive disconnect between the two. He then said, and he reminded us that, in many ways, Africans are our very own worst enemies because we don't invest in ourselves as a people, as a country, as a continent, in this case, but also we don't invest enough in the narrative of that's what is Africa. Then he quoted, Chinua Achebe about saying this, until the lion learns how to write, every story will glorify the hunter. You've got that? Until the lion learns how to write, every story will glorify the hunter. So what is the bottom line to all of this? he's suggesting, and this is the basis of my conversation with you, that we have to rethink our role on the African continent and our role as people and as a continent compared to other countries. And if we don't bet for ourselves, to borrow a cricketing phrase, or bet on ourselves or support each other, well, nobody else is going to do that. No, absolutely not. Therefore, the importance of thinking local but acting global as an African. Well, that's my point. Now, what's yours?
If you're active on social media and love SAFM, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow our SAFM page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places to find all the guest information, conversations, and stories you love from your favorite presenters, along with regular updates from SABC News. And don't forget, you can send your questions to feedback@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So would you like to add your thoughts to that opening, that's my point, thoughts around quoting Tebe Kalafeng and the need that Africans must effectively assert themselves, and if we don't assert ourselves, well, then nobody else is going to do that, not at all, and that, in essence, is what the issue is. Let's get your thoughts if you have an opinion on that. You also may have an opinion on any of the other big issues that effectively is a reflection of the national pulse, so go ahead and do just that. Let's, however, start then by talking about the issues that won't go away around the Department of Sports, Art and Culture. Now, we know yesterday Gaten McKenzie made the point of putting an end, immediately, I understand, to the funding of these super fans who travel around the world supporting South Africa. But he's moved on from that to other issues. So now the department has published a list of artists who benefited from the COVID-19 relief fund. It has emerged that the department paid over 71 million rands to the beneficiaries, and more than 3,500 people benefited from that fund. Okay, according to the ministry, the list was published in the interest of transparency. So what does all that mean? What's the transparency? Who benefits? Who didn't? And what do we understand by all of this? So let's bring in Zimasa Velapi, who's the head of communications at the Department of Sport, Art and Culture. Zimasa, good chatting to you. Hi.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and good afternoon to your listeners.
Thank you. Right, so help us understand this. We know we have a new minister. He's been saying lots of things, from the end of the superfan to publishing artists who benefited when they were in dire straits, I would understand, during the period of COVID. What's the official position of the department on this, first of all?
The official stand of the department is we are behind what the minister has asked us to do, which is why today in the morning we released the first list of the COVID-19 beneficiaries. We are going to be releasing another list of beneficiaries again of COVID. The list that we've just issued in the morning was for the first wave. During the COVID-19 period, we had 3 waves where the department was giving assistance to the artist during that period. Now, Ashraf, if you remember, the department has been in the news for us not assisting the artists during COVID when it was the worst time of their lives, and the department did not really talk about it. When we never came out and say, but these are the people that we've funded and this is the money that we've spent. And in that way, it seemed like we were hiding things, because then the sector was saying that we are giving the money to our friends, to our families, to the same people, to all of that. So when the minister actually was appointed, some of the first calls that he received were people saying, please do fire some of the incompetent people in the department, because they never assisted the sector. They're not assisting the sector. If they do, they are corrupt. So the minister then said, guys, let's us be transparent and show the sector as well as South Africans what the department has done over the years. And remember, when the department is doing funding, it was not only on the COVID, but the decision was then made that let's start from the COVID period and then come to 2024-25, which is where we are today.
All right. So let's just understand this. The reasons for revealing publicly which artist received funds. What's the reasons from your side? That means what's the bottom line and the end goal around that?
The bottom line, Ashraf, we are demystifying the perception that the department is not doing anything for artists. So now we are saying, if you look at that list, it's across the board. You've got your well-known artists, and you also have your artists that are not known. So for us, the basic reason is that this is what we do for the sector that we are responsible for. When, because of humanitarian reasons during COVID, we needed to step up and forget about the Mzansi Golden Economy funding that the department has and say, what do we do with that money? Let's reprioritize it and give to every single person who applied and who then qualified. Because remember, when we were doing the COVID-19 relief funding, there was a criteria that people had to meet. And some of those things, for example, they needed to have a tax number. So if people did not have a tax number, then some of them did not get. But we then were not transparent. And to say that these are the people across the board, whether you are a well-known artist or whether you are an unknown artist. So for us, it is saying the department has been doing a lot.
Okay, so basically you wanted to convince and prove to all of us who may be skeptical to say, actually, we are helping artists. So those who are critical, It's like, actually, we're doing so. Right, I hear that. Does the publishing of a list like this, and this is the first one, you said there's another one coming, does it not compromise the relationship? What I'm saying, the fact that you're helping and you give a total figure is one thing, but giving an itemized billing, so to speak, of every one of these artists that received funding, does this not put them into a... there's nothing illegal about it, not at all, but it does put them into compromising positions. Do you not consider that?
Ashraf, we had to make an informed decision to say that the department has been compromised for a very long time without us responding. And if you look at the amounts and you average them, we also wanted to say that what we gave to the artists was not peanuts. So if you look at the 3,900 people that got funding and at 72 million, it averages to about 18,000 rand per person. And of course, they all did not get 18,000. Some got 20, some got more than that, some got less. And we are hoping, based on the reactions that we are also getting from our social media platforms, some people are actually very happy about it, to say that, you know what, this is fair. The department has been quiet. Now we know. We are hoping that it's not going to sour the relationships, but it's going to strengthen them, because all the people who've been blaming us to say that we are not assisting them, if their names are on that list, now the sector will look at them and say, but why did you lie? And we're hoping that they will also call each other out to say, but Zimasa, you've been saying to us the department has never funded you, but your name is actually on the list. And really we're hoping that it's going to strengthen the relationships with the department, and also show that, we're transparent and there is no corruption or there are no shenanigans that the department was doing when we're assisting the artists.
Okay. I had a chat with Bridget, who hosts the show before this show, right? And we were talking about the fact that one of the issues with that list, right? Some people got 10,000, others got 10,000 times 2 times 3 times 4. Some people got 70,000 or even maybe more. That it doesn't provide context. It simply gives us numbers, and numbers without context makes it very difficult to understand. What do you think?
You know what, Ashraf, we can go back. If people wanted context, remember, as I've said, that there was a criteria that we put on the table to say that for you to qualify, this is what you needed to give us. And of course, we had an adjudication team of the officials of the department. Remember, it was something new for us. And we also had to look at, initially when we started by giving people 20,000 rand, for an example. There was an agreement that said, we'll give everyone 20,000 rand, those that qualify and they meet the criteria. But then we also went and looked at the money. Remember, now we are looking at the money that we still have and the commitments that we wanted to make, which is then when we then said, okay, let's drop the money to 10,000 rand. So you will also see that with the second and third wave list that we are going to publish before end of day today, the amounts started to going a little bit decrease. For example, in the third wave, there were people that we gave 6,000 rand because again, it was the budget that we have. And remember, the department has only one budget that we get from National Treasury. So we had to reprioritize during COVID and say, okay, what is it that we're not going to do this time so that we're able to do this?
Okay.
And I'm saying that the amounts are not the same because then we had to look at the kitty.
All right. Have you had a reaction from any of the artists or, artist organizations to saying you helped them, thank you very much, but now you've gone public with us. It puts us in a very embarrassing position. Have you had the response from anybody?
No, we have not had any of that yet. I've been on our social media platforms. I have not picked that up. If there are any, I hope they will then come and tell us. And Ashraf, it's taken us a little bit longer to actually publish this list with amounts. Initially, when I think it was 2020-21, when the noise from the sector was too loud, we discussed as in the department to say, do we issue the list with the amount or don't we? And we then opted in issuing some of the list without the amount of money. And we then stopped issuing because we felt that if we issue with the monies, the safety and all of that. But this time around, we feel that we want to be transparent. They are saying that some of the officials in the department are corrupt. So for us, if we then tell the world that 72 million rands went to 3,900 people, they would then ascertain that the corruption that they are saying that the officials have, it is not there.
Okay.
The money was used in a correct manner.
And that's the reasoning behind what you've just done. How do you separate then, or do you separate artists who benefited from funding because of COVID, right? I mean, supporting them, helping them, and others who have regular contracts. I mean, it's not a help out. It's simply you've hired them. It could be me, for example. You hired them and you pay them a figure, 1,000, 10,000, 20,000, 100,000. Is there a difference in that?
Yes. In the list that we're going to release, Ashraf, we've got the COVID list, which is first wave, second and third wave. And then we're going to release a list of the Mzansi Golden Economy funding. That one is when we call out for proposals for people to send us a proposal and ask for funding. And that one is really detailed because they need to tell us what their project is all about and how much money they want, and they break down the money. And again, when we go out for call for proposals, for example, last year, one of the issues that we said the proposals must talk to is the 30 years of freedom and democracy in South Africa. So if a proposal was not talking to 30 years of freedom and democracy, that proposal was already disqualified from the batch of proposals.
Okay.
So we are going to come back and look at the people that have received from the Mzansi Golden funding. But also, Ashraf, we are mentioning, and I know you might be referring to the McCarthy issue, we are also talking about people that the department has supported by booking them and giving them platforms to perform, and we pay them. Does that mean? And it does not mean that we've funded them, so they don't fall under the umbrella of funding, but they fall under the umbrella that the department has supported them by booking them and then paying them for that.
Okay, because I see, I mean, you're talking about McCarthy specifically. I mean, so, she, of course, a BET award winner just recently, initially saying she should not be on that list. I mean, in fact, that's her position right now. What do you feel about that?
Ashraf, when McCarthy won the BET, or she was nominated for the BET Awards, she never approached the department for assistance. That's one thing that we want to put out there. Now, me saying that she never approached the department does not mean that if she had approached us, she would have gotten the money. But we do have a program that we call Touring Ventures. They are part of the Mzansi Golden Economy funding. Now, Touring Venture is for an artist or a creative that is invited to go whether into Africa or any other country outside of South Africa to perform. And they then apply for that. And if the department has the money for the touring ventures, we then we assist them to then travel wherever they need to go. Okay. So that's one. That did not happen.
Okay.
But then we then felt that because now we had many media houses sending us inquiries about the Makadzi story that we did not assist her.
Yeah.
For us, we then felt that we needed to then respond through a statement to say, yes, but we've actually supported her in the last.
Okay, so I need to move on. So you haven't assisted her with funding, but you've supported her by booking her, right?
Yes.
And that gives her revenue streams that she does need. Okay, I hear that. But therefore, would she then not be correct in saying you actually did not fund her, and therefore she should not be on the list of recipients of funds, funders, and therefore that list is incorrect when it comes to her position?
If she's on the list of the COVID wave, she was then funded. The statement was talking to the BET inquiry. On that one, we are saying we did not fund her for that, for that. But we had actually given her opportunities where she then earned money. But if her name is on the funding list for the COVID, or if her name is going to be on the list that's funded through Mzansi Golden Economy, then it would mean that the department, apart from giving her bookings and paying her for that, also funded her. But I can't take with authority now and say she's on the list of funded. But if her name is on that list, that means we funded her.
Okay, but basically you're saying they're two different things, and it could be that she could have received both. One is funding and then a business transaction where she gets paid for that. Anyway, thanks for clearing that up, Zimasa Velapi. In fact, we'll chat later on to Jack Devner, right? So listen out for that interview coming up, I think after 5 o'clock, so look out for that. Zimasa is the head of communications at the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture.
Sakina, we are vindicated as the Patriotic Alliance because at local level, we have always said that the DA is very arrogant, is very rude, it wants to be the boss.
And this is very unsettling. If it's unsettling for us as politicians, it's also unsettling for the citizens. And you can actually feel the crispness in the air, Sakina, that the people are tense.
Deputy President Kenny Kunene, and we also have African Christian Democratic Party's spokesperson in Gauteng, Bishop Dalton Adams.
Sakina Kamwendo on SAFM. SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
All right, I'll tell you what, let's pick out some of the comments we've had. Would you like to comment on what you've just heard regarding the spokesperson for the Department of Sports, Arts and Communications, Art and Culture, in fact, regarding the issues of the funding, and that list's been published now, very public, right? Any thoughts on that? Here's a comment, maybe directly related, indirectly so.
Afternoon, Ashraf. This is Magdalene from Bloom. I'm listening quite carefully from your conversation between the Arts and Culture Communication Officer and yourself. If Arts and Culture has been effective enough in funding for relevant things, were we supposed to have kids who were coming to different radio stations requesting for funding, for fundraising, in order for them to go abroad for whatever sports or a pageantry or modeling, whatever they were nominated for, to get and participate for South Africa? Were they supposed to come and request for that? That was very much embarrassing because other kids had to stop from going because of lack of funds. Magdalene from Bloom, thank you.
Thanks for that, Magdalene. I think it's so tricky. I mean, I do think that if somebody represents their country, then automatically there must be, whoever has elected them then to represent the country, there must be at the same time a channel that says, hold it, we will endeavor to fund it. I think that makes complete sense because sometimes they get elected and they don't really know where to go, isn't it? They get selected, they don't really know where to go, and they miss out, right?
Hi, Ashraf. You're speaking to Khoto. I just want to also be helped on the same matter of COVID-19 regarding retail stores that we've been working for. The companies that we worked for during the COVID-19, some paid people money for the COVID-19, but we were not paid by our companies. How can we go through to can claim that money that the company didn't pay to us? Please assist.
Okay, I think, of course, that's certainly not Department of Sports, Art and Culture, but, there was also a business relief. And I think you also raised an important that point, that there has been these business relief agencies set up, and yet there seems to be many, many people who feel that, in fact, they have not received any funding at all, and many of them related to the fact that, as was said earlier, they don't have they're not tax compliant, which is a big issue indeed. And if you're not tax compliant, you're not registered as an entity, then they're certainly not they're not going to help you. They're not going to help you at all, right? And that's another important issue, right? Just the last one, Ashraf, why are you defending the disingenuous reception of funding like Bakasi, who's denying she received support? Where did we defend her? Just a point. But I hear you always put your name, but where did we defend one against the other? Let's get the news headlines now. It's 3:30 with Madupi Makhalamela.
Garda. In your headlines this hour, the Pretoria High Court has found that former Gauteng Health MEC Qedani Mahlangu and the former head of Mental Health Services, Dr. Makhabo Manamela, could have prevented the deaths of 144 patients in the Life Esidimeni tragedy. Former chairperson of the now defunct VBS Mutual Bank Board, Tsifiwa Matodzi, has pleaded guilty to 33 counts, including corruption, theft, fraud, money laundering, and racketeering. And the body of a missing hiker has been recovered on the Otter Trail in the Tsitikama section of the Garden Route National Park. Details of these and other stories at 4.
SAFM.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is slow moving towards Crown Interchange. The N3 southbound in Bedfordview has a crash at Giluli's Interchange. The road's closed with heavy traffic queuing. Linksfield Road eastbound in Edenvale has heavy traffic from the N3 highway towards First Avenue, and the N14 southbound in Centurion has a crash reported before Brockfontein Interchange. In KZN, the M4 northbound has a crash at Blue Lagoon. The N2 southbound in Tongaat has a crash reported after Belito exit. The N2 southbound is queuing towards Spaghetti Junction. The N3 eastbound in Camperdown has a stationary truck reported after Umlaas Road exit, and the R102 southbound is slow moving near Old North Coast Road. In the Free State, the N1 southbound has a truck crash recovery in the central Bloemfontein area, so you're asked to expect delays and diversions. In Cape Town, rain across the Greater Cape Town region with flooding and surface water hazards, so allow extra travel time. The M3 southbound is slow moving towards Rhodes Drive. The N1 inbound in Rawsonville has a ramp closure reported with no access to De Toitskloof Pass due to a mudslide incident, and the R301 Bainskloof Pass is closed. That's due to flood and mudslides along the pass, so please use alternative routes for travelling between Wellington and Ceres. And Wetton Road in Wynberg is slow moving near Maynard Mall. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Doming Khapele.
Right, our Minister of Sport, let's talk Olympic Games.
Yeah, very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. It's exactly 16 days to go to the Paris Olympics, and SA sprinter Akani Simbini and gymnast Caitlin Rooskrantz will carry the South African flag at the opening ceremony of the Paris Olympic Games. Simbini, competing in his third Olympic Games, is one of Team South Africa's medal prospects in Paris as he looks to compete in the 100-meter and the 4x100-meter relay. Then Rooskrantz, marking her second Olympic appearance, has made history as the first gymnast to be named as a flag bearer, an honor that she considers the pinnacle of her career. So a big congratulations to them both. Then in tennis, 7-time champions Novak Djokovic has reached the Wimbledon semifinals. This is after Alex de Minaur withdrew from the last 8 clash with a hip injury. De Minaur suffered the injury in his 4th round win over Arthur Fils. Djokovic will will be playing in his 13th Wimbledon semi-final and 49th at the Grand Slams, and he will face either Taylor Fritz of the United States or Italy's Lorenzo Musetti for a place in Sunday's championship match. In football, Richards Bay have unveiled their signings and a major sponsor today. The Natal boys have signed Sietemba Sitebe, Tabiso Kutumela, Keegan Allen, and a few more new faces, and they have also confirmed that Power Giants Pakwe Group will be their club's main jersey sponsor for the 2024-25 season, with the club bringing in around 100 million rand into the club. Elsewhere, England will try to reach the second straight Euros final when the Netherlands, who are also looking to reach their second final, will rely on their attacking style to win the semi-finals. England went 22 years between 1996 and 2018 without reaching a semi-final, including making it to the final at the World Cup in Russia 6 years ago. England have now reached that stage 3 times. And as the only specialist left back in Gareth Southgate's side, Luke Shaw's return has been eagerly awaited. And the Manchester United defender missed England's first 4 matches while completing his recovery from a hamstring injury. But after appearing briefly against Switzerland, he has now declared himself ready to start, and we are yet to see if he will start. In rugby, South African Rugby Union President Mark Alexandra has pleaded with the newly appointed Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Gayton McKenzie, to immediately deal with the deadlock between his department and the Department of Basic Education in running school sports. Alexandra says that it remains a challenge for them to bring immediate change in public schools because of red tape that is running school sports in the country. Alexandra says that he's quite confident that they can discover more Siya Kolisi's and Makazole Mapimpi if this issue can be resolved.
There are so many kids in the Eastern Cape that don't have access to nutrition, that goes to school without a decent meal. There are so many other Siya Kolisi's. If we can make a difference in those lives, and that's why we need to fight the school thing. Kids must play sport in school, any kind of sport. Doesn't have to be rugby. It's important to have them to playing sport, because that makes our job easier. When we get there, the kid is least doing first aid at school. We don't do first aid at our schools, at our public schools.
In the meantime, a massively disappointed Bafana Ntleko commended the junior Springboks for showing fight in their pool defeat to England, but says an early exit from the Under-20 Championship shouldn't define the talent in the squad. The junior Springboks suffered a late 17-10 loss to England in wet and muddy conditions in their final pool match at Athlone last night. Then in basketball, Klay Thompson says that his move to the Dallas Mavericks is quite a fresh start after a tough ending to his Golden State Warriors career. The 34-year-old ended his 13-year stay with the Warriors to join the Mavericks this week. Thompson, who is an 11th overall pick in the 2011 draft of the Warriors, reached 6 NBA Finals between 2015 and 2022, winning 4. Anything's off with women and sports? Well, the director of the University of Johannesburg Olympic Studies Centre, Professor Cora Lowe, says that gender justice in sport should be introduced from school level. She was speaking at a Women in Sport conference that was hosted by SASCOC today, and Professor Lowe added that the needs of the child to excel in sport should be prioritized from as early as possible until they become professionals, as they will help alleviate most challenges female athletes are faced with in the country.
From primary school, it's crucial, because these where girls and boys are kind of physically equal by the age of 10, 11, 12. They can compete, they can have fun. But these where they learn how to behave towards a girl, how to behave towards a boy, and what is the relationship dynamics all about before puberty kicks in. I think that is crucial at schools, but also to learn in terms of respect everyone, in terms of having that sharing, and teachers got a very crucial role to play. And also in the sports field, girls should be celebrated for their prowess and their sport just as boys. It could start in the primary school, taking it up in another direction and different dynamics into secondary school, and then at to university. So I think the formative years of us as human beings are at the school level. We're there most of the time.
There you have it, speaking to grassroots level, as you can hear her that she's saying that, listen, if we start them from a young age, they grow up in that culture, and then when they're grown up, then we know that they are able to.
Well, I think it's true,
for
particularly for sport, because, people get into sport professionally at a very early age. So you can't say at 22 you're up and coming, you're gone. By 14 or so, they need to be identified already. I mean, the guy who scored a goal last night. What's his name? I forget, and I should not forget it. For Spain, 16 years old. 16, okay, is the youngest in the history scoring in the semi-final in a major tournament. But I mean, even at Wimbledon, if you're like 25, 26, you pass your best unless you're an absolute freak, legend.
Yeah.
That's not the case, yeah.
Yamal, you're talking about Yamal.
Yeah. 16 years old.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm just thinking off the top of my head. I used to go around the country with Cricket South Africa for what's that?
Did you call it Bakers? It's still whatever
used to be
now.
Bakers, KFC Mini Cricket. My goodness, the talent around this country, and they literally 11 years old or 10 years old, and they're brilliant at what they do. So you can only imagine if all sporting codes were able to hone that talent from that young age, how many talents or talented athletes that we can produce all around in the country.
Well, bottom line, you need width and then you need depth. Depth comes when you find the quality. Width comes by exposing as many people as possible to that particular sport. So certainly got that point. Right, more sport from Tumi, width and depth coming up in an hour's time.
And we would buy 500 cars, and we would buy 500 more. So sell your car for the best price, and we won't think about it twice. We buy cars, we buy cars. We buy cars, we buy cars.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
The inaugural Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking Conference will take place from 10 to 12 July 2024 in Cape Town under the theme Africa Unlocked, Unlocking Africa's Growth. Tune in to The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga and The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda to get insights from the conference. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Search Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, we'll have further comments. Many people wanting to comment on a range of issues. The John Klope issue does not go away. You may want to comment on the Life Esidimeni issue. There's a judgment that's been passed effectively ruling that Kaidani Matlangu as well as the Manamela found negligently, guilty of causing the deaths. It's a big, big story, and I'm sure you have an opinion on that, but also a range of other thoughts. We'll chat to Zwelinzima Vavi in a few minutes' time, in fact, about the John Klope issue and his opinions on that. Right. Let's move on to other issues that are particularly important that should concern you, and that's the issues in the Sudan region, right? There's been a civil war in the Sudan, not to be confused with southern Sudan. It's got its own problems, right? And insofar as their problems are concerned, that the Sudan, what happens often is we forget the issues of the humanitarian crisis that unfolds there. So with me is Jose Sanchez, who's a medical coordinator for Doctors Without Borders in the Sudan region. Jose, I appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So first,
how are you?
I'm very good. First things first, give us an idea just how big of a problem this conflict has impacted upon the people of the Sudan.
As you said before, this conflict now is more than 1 year. It started in April 2023, and now this ongoing conflict has devastating consequences for the civilian population. As a Doctor Without Borders, at this moment, we are providing emergency care for the women, children, for civilians directly affected by the violence, affected by gunshot or blast wounded, including sexual violence. Also, we are reporting and treating several cases. The Sudanese health system was already weak before the conflict, but now it's even worse. Now we can say it's collapsed completely. Medicine Sans Frontières, Doctor Without Border. We are supporting hospital and primary health center. We are donating drugs and medical supplies to health facilities. Also, we are paying incentives for the staff, the medical staff who remain in all these hospitals. There are some locations inside Sudan that they have a very high level of malnutrition. For example, in this year, MSF has supported the treatment of more than 30,000 children with acute malnutrition.
So, I mean, certainly it's a huge problem, yeah. I was saying certainly it's a huge problem. Perhaps, I mean, help us then understand if A, how big is the problem in terms of numbers, and then B, they obviously require major humanitarian assistance, right? What sort of assistance do they require, and perhaps what sort of assistance is being provided anyway?
Sorry, I cannot hear you well.
Sorry, I was asking, how big is the problem in terms of numbers? That means how many people are affected by these ongoing battles in the Sudan, and what type of humanitarian help is required?
At this moment, there are more than 10 million of people that have been displaced by this conflict. Among them, 2 million, they fled to the neighboring countries, in Chad, in South Sudan, in Ethiopia. And all these people, they are living in our crowded camps with poor living conditions, poor water and sanitation conditions. All of this combined with the lack of medicine and the disruption of the vaccination program for children, everything together is leading to outbreak of disease, as measles of cholera, for example, that we are facing in the last month. There is a very big, very huge need at this moment also in access to food. There is estimation that more than 5 million of people, they need to have access to food. This is mainly to prevent the widespread of malnutrition in the coming months.
So
the estimation
carry on.
Yes, sorry.
No, I was going to ask you, so therefore, in terms of your work, with regard to Doctors Without Borders, what for you are the biggest challenges in trying to support the many people who need humanitarian aid? What challenges do you face?
There are several challenges. This is clear because we are facing a lot of problems. And the most important, we have the, for example, restriction of movement to be able to send humanitarian support and humanitarian health workers. Restriction for the warring parties, especially to the areas under the control of RSF. This is making it very difficult to reach the people that they are living in the areas affected by the conflict, or the areas that are more active at this moment. Also, we have bureaucratic impediment. We have the process to get visa and travel permit for international workers is very long and complex at this moment. They are not easy at all. We have also, there is a lack of funding. We need more money. There is a lack of humanitarian actors. Only a few organizations we are present at this moment in Sudan. We need more hand and more money. One of the main things that is a big, one of my biggest concerns is at this moment there is a lack of respect for the health facilities. Okay. In the last month, we get bombing and looting, destroy health facilities. The hospital are no longer a safe place for us, for the medical staff, and for the patient.
Okay, let's leave it. Jose, thank you for your time. Much appreciated. Jose Sanchez, who's a medical coordinator for Doctors Without Borders, that's based in the Sudan. Right. Now, many people have had different opinions around the issue of John Clopem. Now, you know that he is one of the members now to the Judicial Services Commission, which actually puts them in a position, those members, that they will actually be able to advise and appoint the future judges of our country at all levels, including the very highest court in the land. And many suggest, in fact, that considering John Tlhophe himself was impeached as a judge, how can he be in a position where he can advise others in the same fraternity? So others have their thoughts. There's a sense as well that perhaps a rethink needs to be done around deciding who is eligible as an MP as well as to these various committees, including the Judicial Services Commission. We'll chat to Zwelinzima Vavi about that right now.
The Arctic and Antarctic are the greatest and least known wildernesses of all. Magical worlds inhabited by the most bizarre and hardy creatures on Earth. David Attenborough travels to the end of the Earth, taking viewers on an extraordinary journey across all 4 seasons in the polar regions of our planet, north and south. Prey and hunter are caught up in the battle of survival. Meet terrifying sea spiders and woodlice the size of dinner plates, polar bears, seabirds, penguins and orcas, and learn how global warming is threatening this fragile ecosystem. Channel your inner explorer with Frozen Planet, Sundays at 6:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Right, it's we've been talking about it all week, right? But it started, the inaugural Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking Conference, which started and will run for the next 3 days. It's in Cape Town under the theme Africa Unlocked, Unlocking Africa's Growth. And then you can tune into 2 shows, the Full Circle, as well as hosted by Bridget Masinga, as well as the National Pulse. We'll cover it today, but also tomorrow we'll be coming to you from Cape Town as we cover that event. And you will have an opportunity by tuning in to gain invaluable insights from the conference.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Right, let's get to the issue of the impeached Judge John Tlhophe. Together with, in the context of that, we chat to Zwelinzima Vavi because he, like many others, have had positions on this issue. So, Zwelinzima, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon, Ash, and good afternoon to everybody.
Much appreciated. Right. So, so we know where we are. We've had a judge who's been impeached. We've had a judge who's now no longer a judge by his own admittance, right? Then gets elected as an MP, playing an important role for his new party, the MK party, and now will serve on the Judicial Services Commission after being elected as that member with very little opposition to that. There has been some opposition, but very little overall. What do you make of it?
Well, I took up a discussion in my personal capacity, by the way. There's been no substantive discussion on this matter. But I asked a question in the context of the raging debate in the country as to whether anybody have thought about a situation where a school principal found guilty of gross misconduct following a due process in which the principal challenges that in court and fails. But then the parents elect the same principal, the same individual, to serve in the school governing body to oversee the same school. You can take it to another level. Imagine a police found guilty by the system inside the police, challenges the matter unsuccessfully in court, but the community elected the same person to serve in the police community forum. I think that's an unsustainable situation. And in my view, this opens a broader debate about eligibility. Because I then took the matter further to say, should we not have a discussion about whether those that have been criticized, condemned by the Chapter 9 institutions, such as the Public Protector, the Auditor General, and the Gender Commission, and who have not taken up this for a review, and therefore these recommendations and damning reports on them stays as a fact, should we not have a rule and change the Constitution as well as the rules of Parliament, such that those individuals are not eligible to be members of Parliament, so that we are then now forced to call them honorable members when they can't answer to the reports of the Public Protector, Auditor General, and All Gender Commission.
So helping...
That's a discussion that
okay.
I'm raising.
So I hear you. So based upon that conversation, if I get it right, then you are not in support of impeached Judge John Klope now serving on the JSC.
Personally, I find that an anomaly, even though I accept that legally the Parliament was unable to evoke any particular rule to exclude him, because there is no such a rule in Parliament. And hence, I'm asking the question, should society not open a discussion about the eligibility of our members of Parliament? Who do we call an honorable member of Parliament? Do we, for example, call a person who the Judicial Services Commission or the courts, the highest courts of the land, would have declared them to have lied under oath, to be liars, or to be dishonorable and in their conduct in whatever manner? Is that not a discussion we should have?
Okay.
In my view, we should have that discussion.
So, I mean, that would require a rethink, because at this point in time, as you made the point, nothing in terms of the current rules actually discards or eliminates a person like John Klope from serving both in Parliament and on the JSC, no matter how others may find it undesirable, right? And that was the gist of those that argued, not so much even the MK party who nominated him, but even the EFF, who suggested that, if he's eligible as an MP to serve, then surely he's eligible for every single subcommittee or committee that forms parts of the National Assembly, and others get to sit on those committees, so why not him?
Exactly. I think they were right, because they were defending the principle of that there is no rules currently excluding anyone, including those that have been condemned as unreliable, dishonest liars. There is no rule that says no liar will be allowed here to be an honorable member. That's the dilemma South Africa is facing.
Is that a weakness of our world-class constitution?
It is. You remember, we learned through experiences. And if the drafters of this constitution only thought that the people who must be not eligible must be those that have been sentenced without an option of fine for 15 years. That's the only limitation we have. There is no other limitation. So the ANC was right to say, no, but on this one, what can we do? There is no limitation in the rules of Parliament. There is no anything we can rely on in the Constitution of South Africa. And the point that I'm making is, now that we have that experience, and by the way, Judge Klope is the only person who is carrying that can in Parliament. There are members of the ANC themselves who have been condemned by the Public Protector's reports, who are appearing in the Zondo Commission reports, and who have done nothing to challenge and set aside those reports. And my point is extending to everyone. Should we call a person honorable when a judicial commission of inquiry set up in line with the provisions of this constitution would have taken a view that this person have an issue to answer in relation to very hefty allegations.
Okay, but the difference is that some of the people you've mentioned, I mean, the names have been fingered, but they haven't actually been charged. In this case, you've had a judge who's actually been impeached. Are you saying that the same should apply to those who've been fingered but not charged?
Exactly. In my view, if you have been fingered by a judicial commission of inquiry, it's not just some inquiry. This is a judicial commission of inquiry. It says, Zwelizima Vavi, you have something to answer in relation to A, B, C, D. And you don't challenge that. You keep quiet and with the hope that the society will forget this. And then you suddenly get elected into the Parliament, and we're now supposed to call you an honorable member of Parliament. I don't think that that's a correct way to go.
Okay, now, I hear your thoughts. Going forward, I mean, two thoughts to consider here. How do you think then the role of John Klope will play out as a member of the JSC rather, not AE, when he is part of this committee that would make recommendations, how do you see that playing out?
I think he will be conflicted from day one up to the last day he serves in that committee. I'm going to have to wait for those who are challenging that on rationality in the courts and see whether they will succeed. If they succeed, I think that will then say to South Africa, should we not have a broader discussion? What about the others that were condemned as having lied under oath by the highest courts of this land, the Constitutional Court? What about those that were found wanting, that appear in the Public Protector's report as being dishonest? What about those that appear in the Zondo Commission, who are also having heavy allegations on their head, which they have done nothing to challenge in the court? Because all individuals that are implicated by Zondo have a right to go to court and get what he says set aside. If you don't do that, in my view, you shouldn't be eligible to be in Parliament.
Okay, well let's see who does what next, isn't it? Thank you for your time, much appreciated, and thanks for that thought leader opinion. And by the way, if you go to Zwelinzima Vavi's tweets or X's, if you can call it that, you'll find much of the conversations we've had already and him expressing his opinion. So appreciate your time today. Right, what about others? You have an opinion on that future of John Klope and in terms of maybe a rethink about eligibility for MPs in Parliament when they've done something, as you've said, either charged or even not charged, just fingered. Any opinions on that? And then particularly someone who's been impeached to serve on a committee that deals with the appointment of other judges. I'm sure you do. Let's get the news now. It's 4 o'clock with Madupi.
Dr. Ashraf, thank you very much, sir. The top story is Asawa judgment delivered in the Life Esidimeni matter and some schools to close tomorrow in the Western Cape. A very good afternoon. The Pretoria High Court has found that former Gauteng Health MEC Qedani Mahlangu and the former head of Mental Health Services, Dr. Makhabo Manamela, could have prevented the deaths of 144 patients in the Life Esidimeni tragedy. The patients died after being relocated from Life Esidimeni, a highly specialized long-term psychiatric hospital, to ill-equipped and unlicensed NGOs. Judge Munuatefo handed down the judgment virtually.
Ms. Mahlangu proceeded to terminate the contract between Life Esidimeni Care Center and the Gauteng Department of Health, despite numerous expert advice and warnings from the professionals in mental health and stakeholders. Her conduct led to the regrettable and unfortunate deaths, some of which could have been avoided. Effectively, Ms. Qedani Mahlangu and Dr. Manamela created the circumstances in which the deaths were inevitable.
Former chairperson of the now defunct VBS Mutual Bank Board, Tsifiwa Matodzi, has pleaded guilty to 33 counts, including corruption, theft, fraud, money laundering, and racketeering in contravention of the Prevention of Organized Crime Act. He was sentenced to 15 years on each count. However, the court has ordered that the sentences run concurrently. Hawks spokesperson Katlego Mogale says Matodzi will only serve an effective 15 years behind bars.
Although the combined sentence amounts to 495 years, the court has ordered that the sentences for counts 2 to 33 run concurrently with count 1. Consequently, Mr. Matodzi will serve an effective 15 years imprisonment. The outcome underscores the commitment of the DPCI and the justice system to holding individuals accountable for their actions.
Western Cape Education Department has announced the closure of some schools in certain districts tomorrow. This as a predicted level 8 storm is expected to make landfall over the Cape overnight. The affected districts are in the Cape Metro, the Cape Winelands and Overberg, and parts of the West Coast. Provincial Education Minister David Maynier says the safety of learners and teachers is of the utmost importance. Widespread rain has wreaked havoc across the province, with at least 15,000 people affected by the inclement weather. Various road closures remain in place due to snowfalls in the Boland. The body of a missing hiker has been recovered on the Otter Trail in the Tsitikama section of the Garden Route National Park. Sandparks spokesperson JP Lowe says the hiker was reported missing by his hiking group when he failed to arrive at an overnight hut. Lowe says the family of the deceased has been notified.
Sandparks Rangers, joined by the National Sea Rescue Institute, began a search yesterday around 15:43. And they did this despite unfavorable weather conditions, large swells and swollen rivers. By nightfall, there was no sign of the missing hiker. The search then had to be resumed at first light today with the support of the South African Police Service and police search and rescue teams. Sadly, news then came this morning that the hiker was found deceased.
And Chinese customs has stopped a man who tried to smuggle in more than 100 snakes stuffed down his trousers. The country's biosecurity and disease control laws forbid people from bringing in non-native species without permission. The BBC's Mickey Bristow.
Border officers stopped the man at a crossing between Hong Kong and mainland China, even though he'd been through the channel for those with nothing to declare. When they inspected his pockets, they found 104 live snakes in 6 drawstring bags that had been sealed shut with tape. The reptiles were mostly small, but a video released by Chinese customs shows that together they made a sizable haul for anyone to carry in their trousers. Last year at the same crossing point, a woman was stopped trying to smuggle in 5 snakes that she'd hidden in her bra.
The top story at 4 o'clock, the Pretoria High Court has found that former Gauteng Health MEC Danny and the former head of Mental Health Services Makhabo Manamela could have prevented the deaths of 144 patients in the Life Esidimeni tragedy. For SAFM News, Coming
up in your sports this hour, Mbappe's Madrid shirt number confirmed and Domino pulls out of Wimbledon ahead of Djokovic's quarterfinal. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 northbound in Diepkloof is queuing on the link to the N12 east at Diepkloof interchange. Linksfield Road eastbound in Edenvale has heavy traffic reported from the N3 highway towards First Avenue. The M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is slow moving towards Crown interchange, and the N3 southbound in Bedfordview has a crash reported at Giluli's interchange, leading to the road being closed. In KZN, the M4 northbound has a crash at Blue Lagoon. The N2 southbound in Tongaat has a crash after Belito exit. The N2 southbound is queuing towards Spaghetti Junction, and the R102 southbound is slow moving near Old North Coast Road. In Cape Town, 35th Avenue southbound has flooding reported during heavy rains at Bishop Lavers, so there are road closures applying when required. Chapman's Peak Drive is closed due to rock falls, and the R303 has flooding reported between the N7 and Central Citrusdal, with stop-go controls in operation. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Channel the forgiving spirit of Utata Madiba on Afternoon Express, Tuesday at 6 p.m. on S3, as community development practitioner Taryn Lee Bell shares how he rebuilt a nation with the power to forgive. We discuss the magic of making a child's dream come true and cook up Madiba's favorite oxtail with umngusho. That's Afternoon Express this Tuesday at 6 p.m. only on S3. Repeat Sundays at 8:30 a.m.
For years, Outsurance have been saying they will save you money on your car insurance or give you cash if they don't. Here are real clients who put it to the test.
Hi, my name is Deboho. I'm 36 from Benoni, and I pay 762 Rand for my Ford Figo 2018 model with Outsurance Comprehensive.
So here's how it works. SMS out to 30754. We'll give you a no-obligation car insurance quote. If the quote is less than you're currently paying, you'll end up saving money on your car insurance every month. And if it's more than you're currently paying, you can ask for 500 Rand. And if you've been with the same insurer and claim free for 3 years or more, and we can't beat your premium, tell us you want 1,500 Rand.
as the slogan goes, you always get something out, either your savings or the 500 rand.
Pay less every month or get cash you just can't lose. Go to outsurance.co.za for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
The world's best cooking show is coming to S3. MasterChef South Africa Season 5. You'll meet 20 talented home cooks from around Mzansi, noma uphumaphi, and no matter your favorite dish, see if the chefs can handle the heat in the kitchen in a race to be crowned MasterChef South Africa. Starts Saturday 13 July at 7:30 p.m. on S3, Channel 193. MasterChef South Africa, proudly sponsored by Pick n Pay.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, we will be commenting and taking calls on there's a VBS finding that we'll talk about shortly. There are further developments, certainly on the conversation I had with Zwelinzima Vavi, that you may want to add your own opinion on, and you can WhatsApp or voice note us, WhatsApp in text or voice note form 0614 104 107 to call in. It's 086 000 2032. Well, here's the open question to you. What for you moves the National Pulse today? What are the biggest issues that concern you, that trouble you, that impact you, that moves you to want to respond, okay? And if the Life Esidimeni judgment is one of them, then listen in, because that's what we talk about now. My guest is Mark Haywood, who's a social activist and former director of Section 29. He was involved with them at the time where I think they put the spotlight on some of the issues that we now talk about. I understand that the judgment of that Life Esidimeni inquest has now been made, and the judge has found that the death victims were, the victims in this case were negligently, the death of those victims were caused negligently so by the conduct of the former Health MEC, Gaidani Matlangu, together with the former head of the Mental Health Directorate, that's Makhabo Manamela. So let's get the thoughts of Mark Haywood. Mark, appreciate your time. You're live on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. You've obviously stayed connected to the judgment. What do you make of it?
Look, it's a precedent-setting and enormously important judgment. Apart from its importance, and this is first and foremost, its real importance to the families of people who died, 144 people, and to the people who survived being moved out of Life Esidimeni, it's also a really important judgment because a politician, the former MEC for Health in Gauteng, has been found to have, as you said, negligently caused the deaths of Life Esidimeni patients, which means that she can now be criminally prosecuted for those deaths. That has not happened in South Africa before. It hasn't come out of any previous inquest or commission of inquiry when it comes to politicians. So its implications are profound, and I'm very happy that the judge in the inquest came to this conclusion. And I think that we have to thank the persistence and resilience of the families of the people who died, and Section 27 and the South African Depression and Anxiety Group for never giving up in their quest for truth and justice in this case. Okay,
maybe it's a good time to just pause and let's just reflect on that judgment and what was actually said.
To give proper and adequate care in providing the requisite mental health care. A conduct led to the regrettable and unfortunate deaths, some of which have been avoided, could have been avoided. In respect of Dr. Makhabo Manamela, she proceeded to hastily facilitate the implementation of the plan, the project plan, or what we call the termination plan, against expert advice from professionals and stakeholders. She could have saved the many lives as she visited the NGOs and could see that they were not adequately equipped, and some of the personnel personnel were not adequately qualified to care for the mental health care users. Some of the NGOs were licensed to care for the mental health care users without following the prescribed protocols. Effectively, Ms. Gedani Mahlangu and Dr. Manamela created the circumstances in which the deaths were inevitable.
Okay, that's just reflecting on what's come through. Now, so Mark, you made the point that it is certainly groundbreaking in terms of having not just a medical person, but an actual politician and a senior politician within the Gauteng province now could well stand trial in a case coming up, and that is damning. Again, I mean, for those, and it certainly says a lot about our judiciary and how we go about doing things. Because for all who are critical about some aspects of South African life, the one thing we do well, I think, in terms of upholding the rule of law, certainly when it comes to implementation from a legal side, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, this is testimony to the importance of what we call separation of powers between the executive and the judiciary, and the independence of the judiciary. And it's also important because it vindicates public interest lawyering, where when politicians have failed, you can resort to the courts, you can present the evidence to the courts, and you can hope that the courts, without fear or favor, will advance justice, which is what has happened in this case. It's taken a long time, Ashraf. You have to remember that the deaths were in 2016, the arbitration by Chief Justice, former Deputy Chief Justice Moseneke, was in 2018. You know, the families have been kept waiting a long time. The wheels of justice move too slowly, but eventually, if you refuse to let go, they can deliver something like has happened today.
What are the implications on two levels? One, in terms of what do you think is going to happen next in terms of those that have been fingered, number one, and two, in terms of, ongoing issues around the treatment of not just patients, right? Patients, mental patients, any other, but also in terms of politicians and leading figures in public life who've been entrusted with doing their duties, not doing so. And how do you see that paradigm shifting now?
Well, to answer part one, the judge will now send her judgment to the National Prosecuting Authority, and having herself found that there was causation between the actions of the NEC and the deaths of the patients in that hospital, the NPA is put in a position to prosecute, criminally prosecute Gedani Mahlangu and Dr. Manamela. That will happen. That continues. As far as the broader implications, what it means is that politicians and senior government officials who have a duty of care, whether it be in hospitals or clinics or schools, have to understand that if they fail to protect people's lives when it is obvious that an action or an omission may lead to death and indignity, then they can become criminally liable. They can be prosecuted for culpable homicide, murder, whatever criminal charge it may be. That's why today's judgment has importance that goes way beyond just the tragic death of 144 people as a result of the Life Esidimeni transfers.
And then what about the families of the victims? I mean, what happens next for them?
Well, I'm in touch with some of the families, and they are best to speak for themselves. But I know that this will not bring full closure, but it will make them feel that there's a degree of justice. Because in 2015, before the Life Esidimeni was closed, the families were petitioning Gedani Mahlangu and others. They were begging, they were pleading, they were warning with the doctors of the patients that this would lead to death. So the families always knew that justice would only be achieved when the people who ignored their pleas, who ignored their warnings of what could happen, would be held accountable. And that is what has happened today. But nothing can take away the pain of knowing that a vulnerable person with a mental illness was tortured and died in the most awful conditions, in the cases of many of the deaths. Nothing can take away that pain, and I can tell you, talking to some of these people who've become friends, I see that pain, they live with it.
What about, I'm just thinking about this, we can't, maybe I'm fishing, but we can't look at this in isolation, meaning this is what we know because people like yourself found out about it. There could be many, many cases, not necessarily the same type, but similar issues where effectively people, their lives were put in danger because of negligence. It could even be traffic cops. It could be, I'm talking about different sectors of South African society. I mean, do you think, and I know it's a gut feeling about this, do you think it's far more prevalent than we know?
It's no doubt it's far more prevalent. It happens every day in our public health system because we underfund the public healthcare system. It happens every day when politicians make decisions that they should know will cause pain and in some instances cause death. It is far more widespread. And that's what we must remember is that, if you decide to become a politician, an elected politician, or if you accept a very senior post in government, in the public service, at the outset, you're accepting responsibility for people's lives. It's a heavy responsibility. It's a very worthy and important responsibility if you're prepared to approach it ethically and properly and with conscience. But where you fail to do that, where you see it just as an opportunity to steal or take advantage or for self-promotion, then your actions can lead to loss of life and pain. And that's what's happened in Life Esidimeni. And sadly, it is what continues to happen, including in other mental health care institutions where we are still not properly funding and supporting the people who work in those centers.
Okay, well, there you are. Lots of answers we now have. We also have still further questions. Mark Haywood, maybe it's a good day for South Africa if it's not so much happiness, but certainly a sense of justice has been done or served, and we've all been witness to that. So thank you for your time and the role that you've played, in fact, in highlighting clearly a wrong that we would not have known about if it wasn't highlighted in the first place. So Mark, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Ashraf. Thank you for your time. Good afternoon.
There we are. Mark Haywood, social activist, former director of Section 27, which is the organization that at that time pursued this case to where it is now. Right. Okay, we'll take calls, we'll take WhatsApp messages. You can also tweet out your thoughts too. If you're tweeting, just just tag SFM Radio on the X platform, tag me, Ashraf Garda. Do post on Facebook as well. As always, use that hashtag The National Pulse. From one issue around investigations to another, we talk VBS after this.
You are listening to The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Okay, we'll get you some of the WhatsApp. In fact, just a quick one on the Zwelinzima Vavi issue. People are commenting.
Ashraf, good afternoon. Ashraf, Zwelinzima Vavi, on his time at COSATU, he was caught having sex at the office, and he was expelled at COSATU. But now he is still occupying the same office at another union called SAFTU. So he is not allowed to come up here and pretend as if he is an innocent person. He is also no longer an innocent person. Thank you very much.
All right, got that. We've had a few people tweeting about just that. Now, I mean, there are similarities. There are also differences around that. I think the key part of this, I mean, what's happened with him has been well documented. The key part here is that he is then not providing advice in an area where he himself has been guilty of, if you get my point, okay? I think that's the point of departure between that and what's happened with the impeached judge, John Klope, right? Okay, let's get onto other issues now. We're going to chat to. There's been so many developments, and it happens every moment. That's why we call the show the National Pulse. You may know about this. The Gauteng High Court has sentenced the former Vendor Building Society, that's VBS, of course, the Mutual Bank chairperson, that's Chifiwa Matotsi, to 495 years in prison. That is not a misprint, right? He will only serve 15 years in jail. Let's understand what's happened. Colonel Katlego Mogale was the Hawks spokesperson. Colonel Mogale, appreciate your time. You're live on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, sir.
Thank you. Okay, tell us more about what's happened here today.
What happened was today Mr. Chifiwa Matodzi was convicted and sentenced to 495 years in prison. But that is because of the counts that he was facing. He was facing 33 counts, and according to the law, each count carries a 15-year sentence. And therefore, these sentences are to run concurrently. So count 1 is 15 years, and then count 2 and up to 33 are going to run concurrently with count 1.
Okay, I hear that. How do you see, the implications of now this the sentencing is not just for VBS and for the person involved, but certainly in terms of how the issue of VBS has been perceived all along?
The issue of VBS is very widespread and complicated. That's why it is being put in layers. We have stages of where, that's why we have arrested 33 people, and 4 of them have already been convicted, including Mr. Matodzi.
Okay. How, in terms of, again, the broader issues, just to remind us in terms of the levels of conviction, in terms of what was he convicted on, and therefore what I'm looking at the broader issues, the implications thereof for others in similar situations.
Yes, we are going to pursue all the cases that are involved in the VBS, and this is sending a stern warning that it is imperative that those who have had a hand in the VBS scandal are brought to book.
Yeah. Okay. What about? Let's just talk about the role of the Hawks. I mean, there has been, as you know, right? There's been so many conversations we've had, certainly on these spaces and others, to say, the rules in terms of the law turns very, very slowly. The wheels of law just turns very, very slowly, and that's a huge problem. And therefore, there's been this largely skeptical South African public. Suddenly we've had, and I'm not saying it's coincidence, but we've now had a series of cases where judgments have been passed, people have been, convicted. And that's critically important. So maybe give us an insight in terms of now how the work of the Hawks has been escalated.
With the DPCI, our operating procedure is that we investigate a case before we get somebody arrested, so that by the time we effect an arrest, we have a concrete, tight case that we will be able to put through court and eventually have someone convicted.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to add to this?
No, thank you.
Okay. Nothing else to need to add for now, right? Colonel Katlego Mogale, Hawks spokesperson, to recap the Gauteng High Court sentencing the former vendor or VBS chairperson Chifiwa Matodzi to 495 years in prison, 15 years in jail. So there you are. There's a sense for many people to say too many people implicated. Well, you know what happens? We turn a blind eye. That is not the case at all. Let's get to some of the callers, which we'll do right away. Musa in Sandton, hello.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
I want to find out, are there any members of former apartheid who are in parliament?
Okay, the answer would be yes. What's your point?
Okay. So if yes, I think apartheid was declared what you call criminal against humanity. Those members are declared as such, but they are allowed to sit there in parliament and take decisions on our behalf. And there are judges who were former apartheid setup who are still practicing. Those judges who were not riding in the same bus with the black men, but now are the judges who are saying they are holding that esteem which people like Vazi are looking for. I find it very, very, very confusing to say we were under apartheid, which was so brutal, and those people are the same people who are controlling everything, economical and so forth. They are setting parties and everything. We are the disjointed country because of them who doesn't want to go.
Okay, I hear you.
People like Vazi come here and defend such people.
Well, I don't know if he's defended them. I don't think he's defended them. I think he's defended a certain position. I certainly get that. Thank you. We're going to move on. And maybe it's a broader question. See, some may say that happened then. There was a negotiated settlement. We're not talking of something that's happened in the current tense. But I hear your point of view. Here's another.
Hi, Ashraf and the listeners. I just want to weigh in on this issue of Judge Slope. Actually, Dr. Slope. I think the mistake that was made was after impeaching him for the misconduct, he should have been charged with something, basically, because whatever he's done, that was illegal. He should have been charged and be persecuted after that. The issue of impeachment and say it's finished, it was wrong from the Judicial Service Commission itself and Parliament in itself, because after such a misconduct, then there were supposed to be criminal charges if we can prove that actually he did try and influence those judges. So it's their mistake. So now it's right and fit to be in Parliament. He has a right to be in any committee. Thank you. This is Justice Mabasa from Babatin.
And I like the first name. Justice is what your name is. Okay, I mean, I hear that too. And again, many people have spoken about that to say too many people removed from committees, various committees or organizations, like even law societies, they're not then charged, which means that they effectively permitted to carry on doing their work elsewhere. So what to do about that anomaly? By the way, Life is Demanding. We'll get a further comment on that, certainly from a family member of one of the victims. That comes up later on. Let's get the news headlines now. Just gone 4:30 with Madubi.
Thank you very much, Ashraf, and a very good afternoon indeed. In your headlines, the family of one of the Life Esidimeni victims says she's relieved after judgment was handed down following the inquiry into the deaths of over 100 mental health patients in 2016. Rise Mzansi leader Songezo Zibi has been elected the chairperson of the Public Accounts Watchdog SCOPA in Parliament. And Western Cape Education has announced the closure of some schools in certain districts tomorrow as a predicted level 8 storm is expected to make landfall over the Cape overnight. A full news update with Greg at 5.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 southbound in Bedfordview has oil spillage reported at Gilulis interchange. The road's closed, causing heavy delays. The N1 northbound is queuing on the link to the N12 east at Diepkloof interchange, and Seven Road southbound is queuing through Senderwood. In KZN, the N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle after Sibaya Drive exit. The M4 northbound has a crash reported at Blue Lagoon, that's causing delays, and the N3 westbound has a stationary vehicle just before Pavilion Shopping Centre exit. In Cape Town, the M5 southbound is slow moving towards Krumbum Road exit. The M3 southbound is slow moving towards Rhodes Drive, and the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound is slow moving towards Hospital Bend. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Doming Kapele.
Right, Chumi, let's talk sport.
Right, we start things off with football. Real Madrid have announced that new superstar Kylian Mbappe will wear the number 9 jersey at the Santiago Bernabeu Stadium and will officially be unveiled next week. Los Blancos signed Mbappe on a free transfer after his contract with Paris Saint-Germain expired. He wears the famous number 9, following in the steps of the likes of Karim Benzema, Ronaldo de Lima and Alfredo Di Stefano. Elsewhere, Luke Shaw is expected to start on the bench for England's Euro 2024 semi semi-final against the Netherlands today, with Kieran Trippier in line to keep his place in the starting 11. Some fans and pundits have called for Shaw to be thrown in from the start at left wing after he made an impressive impact as a late substitute in the quarterfinal penalty shootout win over Switzerland. Shaw is the only naturally left-footed defender in England's squad, but various setbacks in his recovery from a muscle injury might have delayed his involvement. In rugby, 6 players with previous Olympic Games experience, including 2016 bronze medalist Roscoe Speckman, have been included in the 14-man Springbok 7 squad for the Olympic Games in Paris. Speckman will partake in his second Olympic Games alongside Impi Visser, Zane Davids, Selvin Davids, Ronald Brown and Sivuyo Soizwapi, who were part of the squad that placed 5th in 2021 in Tokyo. Brown and Katlego Letebele were named as travelling reserves in the Paris squad and will only be called upon in case of injury to one of the 12 players allowed for the squad and residents in the Olympic Village. In tennis, Alex de Minaur has been forced to withdraw from Wimbledon ahead of his quarterfinal with Novak Djokovic due to a hip injury. The 9th seed was scheduled to take on 24-time Grand Slam champion Djokovic in today's second match in centre court. Djokovic is handed a walkover and he might just face Italy's Lorenzo Musetti or American's 13th seed Taylor Fritz. In golf, Rory McIlroy is confident of bouncing back from his major heartbreak and says that he will learn a lot from narrowly missing out on an US Open victory last month. McIlroy briefly held a 2-shot lead with 5 holes to play at Pinehurst number 2, but bogeyed 3 of the last 4, missing 2 putts from inside 4 feet to allow Bryson to snatch a 1-shot victory. Now, the run-up finish was his second in as many years at a US Open and 21st top 10 in majors since his last success at the 2014 PGA Championship. Then in the business of sport, Manchester United have recorded a net loss of $91.4 million. That's around 1.6 billion rand between January and March this year. In the club's latest financial results, United's losses includes $38.8 in exceptional costs related to the sale of 27.7% of the club to Jim Ratcliffe, including consultancy fees owed to the American firm Rain. Now, United's failure to progress from the Champions League group stage will have also played a part in the increased losses last season. However, the club are reportedly confident that improved ownership and management structures are now in place to deliver better recruitment in the future while maintaining their commercial resilience. With that said, it's a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour for SAFM
So, quick
Sport.
question to you, Chumi. You know, earlier you spoke about the Olympic Games, the flag bearers, right?
Yes.
So for South Africa, it's who?
It's Khani Simbini
Right.
and Ruas Grant, who is a gymnast.
Okay, so one sprinter and one gymnast, right?
Yeah.
What do you think of it? How much importance do you attach to these flag bearers?
I think it's absolutely a great honor as an athlete to be considered to be a flag bearer, because you will be amongst those in front, obviously, just holding that flag up there, but also just reminding the athletes why they are there and just showing that, listen, I am here to fully represent South Africa. So not anyone can actually hold that flag, just by the way. So it's a great honor.
I think you're
for the
right. It is a
athletes,
great
yeah.
honor. But here's a quiz question for you and for me. Who were the flag bearers of the last 3 Olympic Games for South Africa? And if you don't know,
I know Chad Leclerc. Chad Leclerc is one of them, just by the way.
Either. Okay, was Chad Leclerc one of them?
Yeah.
Okay. The point I'm driving at is it's important in the moment, but then historically we tend to forget about it completely. So if you really ask me that, I don't know. I think Penny Hines may have been one of them, but I can't remember. Absolutely not. If anybody else can remember, who were the flag bearers of every single South African Olympic Games since our re-entry? I think 92 was an anomaly. We competed under sort of an Olympic flag because we didn't yet have democracy. And then thereafter, if you know, I'd love to know as well. Right, thanks for that. To me, we'll have more sport in an hour. Coming up next, we talk the markets.
Channel the forgiving spirit of Utata Madiba on Afternoon Express, Tuesday at 6 p.m. on S3, as community development practitioner Taryn Lee Bell shares how he rebuilt a nation with the power to forgive. We discuss the magic of making a child's dream come true and cook up Madiba's favorite oxtail with umngusho. That's Afternoon Express this Tuesday at 6 p.m. only on S3. Repeat Sundays at 8:30 a.m.
The inaugural Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking Conference will take place from 10 to 12 July 2024 in Cape Town under the theme Africa Unlocked, Unlocking Africa's Growth. Tune in to The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga and The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda to get insights from the conference. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Search Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
EFC is live this Thursday. One of the greatest mixed martial artists of Africa returns to the World Sports Betting Arena. Iga Smiley Kabesa has cemented his legacy in the record books as the Continental GOAT. Now he puts his lightweight title on the line against Humphrey King Cobra Malenga. EFC 115 live this Thursday. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel and DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Have you heard of a new Samsung phone? There's a new launch. We'll talk about that later on. We'll also talk to Jack Davenarine to get another thought on the artists and the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture coming up. Do not miss that. But for now, it's Markwe Masilena, who's the Chief Investment Officer at Markwe Fund Managers. Markwe, good chatting to you. Let's talk local and global markets.
Afternoon to you, Ashraf, and to the listeners. Ashraf, from the Fed's chair testimony yesterday, it is apparent that he's beginning to tee up a rate cut, and the question is exactly when, and that's something he's not going to be able to answer. He said they need more data, but they don't know how much more, and comments may have been a slight disappointment for people who were hoping he will give greater clarity about how much more data the Fed needs to have confidence to start cutting rates. And this morning, the US dollar was on the front foot, having rebounded from that 3-week low after a cautious tone on how soon interest rate cuts will come. That's before falling slightly. And after a week of political drama in France, market jitters have eased, and focus is now on US inflation data to be released tomorrow. Today's Japan consumers inflation met expectation, but China's missed expectations, and bears are firming Ashraf that the US will be able to ease policy before end of the year, but we should expect a market volatility, and that's amid US political uncertainty. And locally, our imports and exports fell in Q1, and that's because, and particularly for the fruit and export and mining houses, and Ashraf, that's because of the inefficiencies when it comes to our local ports. And oil prices are steady after recent losses after a bigger than expected draw when it comes to US inventories. That itself suggested tight conditions in the oil's largest consumer, and OPEC kept their growth focus for oil demand unchanged for this year and next year. That is 2.25 million barrels per day and 1.85 million barrels per day respectively. As we are talking, oil is down 0.1% at $84 a barrel, and the Fed chair comment suggested the case for interest rate cuts is getting stronger, meaning the opportunity cost Ashraf to hold the yellow metal will be less. And for the second month in a row, global physically backed gold exchange traded funds saw an inflow, and gold now is up 0.8% at $2,383. Platinum is down 0.4% at $986. DAX, just like CAC, up 0.7%. FTSE up 0.5%. The Dow is flat. S&P is up 0.3%, but the JSE is down 0.1%. With our resources up 0.6%, financials down 0.6%, industrials down 0.2%, and the rand is now 18.07 to the US dollar, 23.20 to the pound, and 19.56 to the euro.
Right, that's it for today, Marco. We'll chat tomorrow. Much appreciate your input as always. Right, we're going to take your calls after this.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, we're going to speak to a family member of one of the victims of that horrific Life Esidimeni story. We'll chat to that person shortly, so listen out for that. Lots of comments, and it doesn't seem to go away around the issues of many of the big issues that effectively dominate the pulse of the nation, so therefore that moves the national pulse. But the John Hlophe story is one of them.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. This is Anonymous from Wilderness. I just want to say something about the John Hlophe thing. I think the ANC is slightly using him to get to this position that he is, and then to somehow influence whoever that will end up favouring Jacob Zuma and take away everything that's hanging over Jacob Zuma's head, and then Jacob Zuma will no longer be interested in politics, because the only reason why he's there and why he's fighting everybody and being in politics again is just so that he can make everything go away. So I think John Hlophe, Dr. Hlophe, is the tool, and the ANC is letting him being there so that they know he can help them to make Jacob Zuma go away. That's just my thought. Have a good day. Bye.
And I wonder how is he going to help them? I mean, I'm just thinking about this tool that will help them go away. I don't know. You haven't given the practical plot to that story, so we don't really know. Here's another.
Hi, good afternoon, Ashraf. No, this is Mufuge. Yes, Ashraf, you know what? I want to make this point. This morning I was listening to Breitenberg. I sense a lot of hatred from a speech. She was talking with Stephen this morning. And after all, we cannot blame Mr. Hlophe, or we cannot blame MK for bringing the qualified people like Ndade Hlophe. These people they need to understand, and they need to welcome this situation, because we are not going to nothing is going to change, because even the chief whip of ANC this morning, he actually explained this thing very, very, very. Actually, he came with step by step so that we can all understand what is actually going on. Okay, thank you so much, Asha.
Thank you. Well, I got that. She did sound very angry. I'm talking about earlier on. I just heard her. When you say you can't blame the MK party in John Hlophe, I don't know what you mean by can't blame them. You see, in terms of the law, he's allowed to stand. That's a given. The question that's been asked is, morally, should he be allowed to serve on that committee? Nobody's saying he can't use even his legal expertise on other committees, but not that committee, considering the fact that he was impeached in that space. That's really the issue there, right? Okay, here's another couple more about funding.
Afternoon, Ashraf. This is Magdalene from Bloom. I'm listening quite carefully from your conversation between the Arts and Culture Communication Officer and yourself. If Arts and Culture has been effective enough in funding for relevant things, were we supposed to have kids who were coming to different radio stations requesting for funding, for fundraising, in order for them to go abroad for whatever sports or a pageantry or modeling, whatever they were nominated for, to get and participate for South Africa? Were they supposed to come and request for that? That was very much embarrassing, because other kids had to stop from going because of lack of funds. Magdalene from Bloom, thank you.
Okay, got that, Magdalene. We'll get to calls in a second, KB.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ashraf. It's Frederick Tracker here. Mr. Ashraf, recently we were talking about KB, the singing of the national anthem. So tell me, if somebody identify KB and say wherever the teams of South Africa are going, KB must go and sing the national anthem, are we going to have people saying, why KB? Because this is a woman who has been singing throughout her career, but because people identify what she's capable of and can say, let her represent us everywhere we go. Is that wrong? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. I think the point is valid. It's like, and if she should get paid for that. The question is not her. I think the question is with regard to supporters. That's really there's a big difference, right? That means what is the value that she brings to Loftus on Saturday, and what is the value of a supporter that if the supporter needs to get paid, that brings to the value that brings to an event to help a team win, and I say it in inverted commas, to win a test match or an international game. Okay, let's get to Mangena. Hi, Mangena.
Good afternoon, Ashraf.
Thanks for joining us. Go ahead.
Ashraf, I'm going to make it short on Dr. John Shope.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, he has challenged the impeachment and he has filed papers before the Constitutional Court. So that's the first point. So it is incorrect to suggest that he has not challenged the process of his impeachment. Take it further. My view, and it's my personal view, is that Dr. John Shope's impeachment whole process and the allegations against him, in my view, emanate from something way different. For instance, we have the Minister of Correctional Services currently, who is alleged to have in the past participated in the Ascaris and all the apartheid scandals. But we have accepted that person to be in our parliament for all these years. He's now been given a position of a ministry. We are not complaining because we generally peaceful people that we understand.
All right, Mangena, you said you'll keep it short. I do need to move on. I hear what you're saying. I think on the Ascaris part, you're right. There was a deal that was negotiated in South Africa. And we don't have to go into that. That was then, right? Regarding, challenging an impeachment, is there not a case to say, challenge the impeachment first? If that gets overturned, then you're back in business. I mean, that's a thought to consider. Thanks for that call, Mangena. Let's get to Sydney now in, is it Acorn Hook, right? Hi, Sydney.
I from Sydney, deliver in Acorn Hook, Bushbuck Ridge.
Thank you. You're bringing Bushbuck Ridge on the map, you see. That's why it's important to call in.
Yes.
Go ahead. What's your point?
Yeah, Brother Ashraf, 3 weeks before Judge John Shope was impeached, I called on this radio station with Brother Steve in the morning. I made a passionate plea that please do not impeach the judge. I even specified who I was directing my request from, that please do not impeach the man. Even Judge Nkola Matata, because he was of advanced age. But anyway, they went on and impeached him. Then, when I look at it today, I see how great God can He be in a human life. When we are failing, you ask as human beings to forgive. God will forgive and restore. In the latter life of Judge John Shope, I learned that strengthen my faith in God. That no matter how wrong I might have done in life, even if people cannot forgive me, God will forgive. God forgave him. God restored his life in his own way that all of us never thought it will be. I don't interfere in this politics or in this political analysis. All I'm saying on the religious line, on how I believe in God, on my faith, I see the act of God.
Okay, I hear you. Sydney, we're going to have to move on. I hear you. And I think you're right about it. The fact is we all make errors. I make errors. You make errors. We all do that. There must be some space for rehabilitation. If there's nothing of that sort, then what is there to live for? Like, you've made one error, that's it. End of story, isn't it? So your point is valid, and I take that. Whether that applies in this case specifically to an impeached judge now effectively judging the judges is another whole conversation, and that's what we're talking about now.
What's up, good people? It's Bulela Podisa, the girl from next door that you can call friend. This is Deal or No Deal Celebrity. Catch us every Saturday at 6 p.m.
The Market Update, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Want to stay ahead of the financial game? Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights. Only on the SAFM Market Update.
SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Muyaha.
So we've been talking about this all week, isn't it? Now, the inaugural Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking Conference has started. It starts today. In fact, today, tomorrow, and Friday, over 3 days in Cape Town under the theme of Africa Unlocking Africa's Growth, right? Now, tomorrow, we'll be there, right? We, as in the Full Circle, hosted by Bridget Masinga and the National Pulse, will be at the event. So you listen in today as well, by the way, but certainly tomorrow and Friday to gain insights from that all-important conference.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right. We're still having such a range of conversations around John Slaughter. What about the Life is a Demeni story? I mean, do you have an opinion on that in terms of the findings today and again, the broader issue of holding people in public office, in particular public office, to account and what that means for the future? Well, Christine Ngumalo is with me. She blew the whistle on the Life is a Demeni itself after losing her sister, that's Virginia Machpela, right? Christine, I appreciate your time and thank you for joining us on what must be a difficult day today for you. Huge emotions, I'm sure.
Thank you very much for having me. Very difficult, emotional turmoil, and it was very difficult emotionally. Yeah.
So how then do you deal with today, for example? You know there's a judgment being delivered and there's findings against two key members, the Minister of Health and a medical doctor. How do you deal with it?
Well, it just basically vindicates us, because initially when we started this whole thing, there were no deaths at the time. So we were pleading and begging, writing letters and protesting, saying, don't do this, don't do this. And then on the other hand, you had professionals who knew what they were talking about saying, don't do this. So today basically says, you cannot be in that kind of space. You cannot make decisions without consequences. And if you're not going to listen, this is what's going to happen. It may take you 8 years. It may take 10 years, but ultimately you're going to have to pay for things like this.
So in this case, it's a case of, justice being served and then serves as a very important reminder for what may happen in the future. But as you would know from yourself and your sister, it can't bring back what you've lost, isn't it?
No, it doesn't actually. The trauma, the pain, the heartache, the whole 8 years of fighting and trying to put your case through, you will never get those years back. But what it does say is that it was not in vain.
Is that how you see it? I mean, do you see it as in not in vain, as like do you think of it in terms of victory, or in a case of, either is it in terms of victory, or is it in terms of like, I just had to do what I had to do and make people aware and blow the whistle on this issue?
It's in many folds, right? For me, it was in honor of my sister. I needed to show and I needed to stand up and say, you cannot take my sister's life the way you did and not pay for it. So that was the first thing. Secondly, it was saying to every other family member that's going to have to go through the system, they cannot go through what we've done, what we've been through. It cannot be. And then thirdly, it was a matter of, we cannot have absolute power like we have, where you can take people's lives or make decisions and there's no consequences. So there were many different reasons why we were doing it, but ultimately it was to hold people accountable for the decisions they make.
Go back if you can. I'm sure it's such a difficult thing to do, to relate to us the story of your sister. What happened to her, and how did you find out about these cases of maladministration or negligence that took place, and what happened next to you and your sister?
Look, my sister had not been in the system for too long. She literally had been at the Life is a Demeni Randfontein for just under 2 years, right? So we were new in this whole space, and we were just getting used to my sister being at this facility and us, dealing with the visiting section, and she had a daughter. So we needed to kind of like give her the satisfaction of saying this facility is the best place for her. The care that she's receiving is the best care. And taking her there and seeing her mom do better was actually part of the getting to accept that mom can't be home anymore. Mom needs to be in this facility. go a couple of 2 years down the line, we are called to a public meeting where we are told the facility is closing. So you can imagine our confusion was like, why are you closing? And this was at a public meeting where we are told that the facility is closing. But what blew my mind about that meeting is that I didn't know that there were so many people or so many mental health care users in that facility, because the hall was full, to capacity, and we were blown away, because when you go and visit your loved one, your loved one is brought to a reception area where you don't really get to see the magnitude of the place, let alone the people. So when we attended this public meeting, we were blown away by the number of family members that had attended. So that explanation of saying people didn't visit their loved ones, that was just a whole lot of hogwash. The excuse that the Department of Health used to say that no, they're closing because people are not looking after their loved ones. That was nonsense. So and then being told that the facility is closed and is closing. But what got our attention was that it was closing in 3 months. That was mid-January when we were at that public meeting, and they were telling us by March, end of March, the facility was closing. So we obviously stood up. I think every single family member stood up and saying, "Are you crazy? We've been through the NGO process. It doesn't work for our loved ones. The Life Esidimeni facility process works for us. You cannot do this." And of course, they did not. They did not allow us. They were not listening. They were not hearing. It was a done deal. This was just them going through the motion of letting the families know, going through that process. So there was no changing of this process.
And let's end with this in 30 seconds as we get to news. I mean, when you then finally found out that you had lost your sister, what was your response?
I was angry because I until that call, I did not know where she was. So from the time she left Grandfontein to the time I got that call, I was still trying to track her down. I did not know where she was. To be called by Ethel Nuber to say that she had been there all along and that she had passed, really got me, really my blood boiling.
And lastly now, I mean, the two people mentioned publicly today, the MEC and the doctor, if you could talk to them directly now in one line, what would you tell them?
Should you not have listened to begin with? Imagine if it was your loved one, what would you have done?
Yeah. Okay, let's leave it at that. Christine Ngumalo, I appreciate you giving off your time at clearly a very difficult day, difficult moment. It's been a difficult 8 years for you and your family. There's no question about it, including the daughter or the child of your sister, right? But thank you for giving off your time. It's really appreciated. Christine playing this important role, blowing the whistle on the Life Esidimeni issue after losing her own sister, Virginia. We'll have more on that and your calls on that after 5 o'clock. Let's get the news now. It's 5 with Greg Hose.
Thank you, Ashraf. Families react to the Life Esidimeni ruling in Israel to increase the military draft. Good day to you. A family member of one of the Life Esidimeni victims, Christine Ngumalo, says she's relieved after Judge Monwatefo handed down judgment following the inquiry into the deaths of over 100 mentally health patients in 2016. The inquest was established in 2021 to investigate who should be held responsible for the deaths. Ngumalo's sister, Virginia Makopela, is one of the deceased who Judge Tefo named when handing down judgment.
The fight was not for nothing. If nothing else, my sister knows that we fought really hard for her. This was in honor of her and every other patient that died. It was horrific. It's like I don't even think people want to see dogs die like that. They died like they were less human. So I am very happy right now with the judge.
The leader of Rise Mzansi, Songezo Zibi, has been elected as the new chairperson of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, or SCOPA, in Parliament. Zibi, whose party is part of the Government of National Unity, was nominated by the ANC to take the position. He says he's not expecting an easy ride.
The first time I came to notice SCOPA, Gavin Woods, I think from the IFP, was the SCOPA chairperson. And Lalu Chiba from the ANC was part of it, and Feinstein from the ANC was part of it, and so on, right? And it was a very effective scoper. And in a way, I think it also talks to your earlier question about whether you can do the scoper on. I think Gavin Woods and all of those MPs were very effective, right? Because when you take the responsibilities of the Constitution seriously, you do the work as you should do it. So I don't expect an easy job. I understand it's a mountain of work.
The Western Cape Education Department has announced the closure of some schools in certain districts tomorrow. This is a predicted storm is expected to make landfall over the Cape overnight. The affected districts are in the Cape Metro, Cape Winelands and Overberg and parts of the Cape West Coast. Widespread rain has caused havoc across the province. At least 15,000 people have been affected. Meanwhile, the Swartland municipality says roads in the Malmesbury area are inaccessible. The municipality says residents are encouraged to use other routes wherever possible. Other sites affected and closed to the public include the Klip Heuvel Road and Old Kolbos Kroll Road, which is submerged. A 40-year-old man has been sentenced to 25 years direct imprisonment by the Galashera Regional Court in Kimberley in the Northern Cape for raping his 6-year-old daughter. The minor reported the incident to her mother when she was experiencing pain. A case was opened the same year. However, the accused fled and was traced and arrested in 2019. Further afield, Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has announced the country is to begin drafting ultra-Orthodox men into the military next month. The BBC's Mike Thompson has more.
Many of Israel's ultra-Orthodox Jews believe military service is incompatible with their way of life. Other Israelis argue that the long-standing exemption unfairly burdens them, especially at a time when the country is at war and short of recruits. The issue, which has led to clashes in the streets, has also created divisions in Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition cabinet. Two ultra-Orthodox parties within it are fiercely opposed to the measure. It follows a ruling last month by Israel's Supreme Court ordering an end to the exemption for ultra-Orthodox Jews from mandatory military service.
Top story, a family member of one of the Life Isidameni victims says she's relieved after a judge handed down judgment following the inquiry into the deaths of over 100 mental health patients in 2016. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Khoos.
In sports, Simbini and Roos Grants named Team SA's flag bearers for Paris Olympics and Elena Rybakina through to the last four of Wimbledon. More details at 5:30.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 northbound is queuing towards Woodmead Drive exit. The N3 southbound in Bedfordview has oil spillage reported at Kilulis interchange. The road is closed, causing heavy delays. Old Johannesburg Road northbound in Centurion is slow moving at the N1 highway, and the N1 southbound in Pretoria has a crash reported just before Rigel Avenue. In KZN, the N3 westbound has a stationary vehicle just before Pavilion Shopping Centre exit. The N2 southbound has a crash on the off-ramp to the M7 highway, and the R102 southbound is slow moving near Old North Coast Road. In Cape Town, the R45 Franschhoek Pass is closed from 6 p.m. this evening for safety reasons ahead of Thursday's storm. Depending on conditions, the pass may reopen at some point during Thursday. Wetton Road eastbound, Plantation Road has some congestion reported. In Rondebosch, Belmont Road eastbound is queuing towards Campground Road, and Milner Road southbound is queuing towards Kromboom Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
I see Joe Biden, the man who should be challenging Donald Trump, well, he's coming to fire once again. Now I understand that George Clooney, one of the funders of the Joe Biden campaign, has come out publicly and suggested a rethink around Joe Biden standing for election. And just a quick thought on the Life Esidimeni story in numbers, brought to you by Becky Sisa, right? Just listen to this one. 30 years, the length of time the Life Esidimeni had been providing specialized mental health care for the Gauteng Department of Health. Then 1,606, the number of patients transferred, 1,329 were moved in a 2-month period. 27 were the number of NGOs Life Esidimeni patients were transferred to. Okay, over 2 to 3 months, the length of time after receiving patients NGOs took to recruit health professionals. 144 the number of patients who have died, 44 the number of patients still missing, 1,418 the number of people known to have survived, and 1 million rands the amount in constitutional damages the Gauteng Department of Health ordered to pay the claimants. Yeah, lots to consider over all of that. And really a sad day. There's justice, but certainly at times, certainly for the families, they are struggling, as we've heard. 8 years. It's been a long, long journey. Right, let's get to other issues. You know, earlier on, we chatted to the spokesperson from the communication department, in fact, of the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, and that issue around funding from sports people on the one hand, or super fans on the other, to artists. Well, that conversation has been going on for the better part of, I think, almost close to 48 hours. So let's take it a step further with somebody who ought to know, Jack Devnarine, who's an actor, MC, voice artist, but Jack is also heading up an organization that I think deals with actors. Jack, hi.
Hi, Ashraf.
Yeah, good talking to you, man. So what do you make of what has happened? I'm not going to ask you to talk about sport, but certainly in the field that you're an expert in terms of, actors or artists. What do you make of what's been unfolding with regard to the pronouncements by the minister in particular?
Ashraf, I'm afraid I can't really make sense of it. I wish I understood the strategy behind it, because I've been following the minister's posts, and he seems to be alluding to rooting out some kind of mafia element within the department itself, suggesting that some funding may have been allocated for people who are not deserving, and that if there's some analysis of the list that was released, then we might be able to make sense of, who those people are. And honestly, I don't see the list speaking to that. If anything, I'm afraid that we might be victim blaming here, because the list that was released was already in the public domain years ago. These people who legitimately fulfilled the criteria for COVID relief funding, these were people who had to prove that they had lost work as a result of the COVID lockdown, and they had to produce some kind of cancelled contract in order to verify their claim. So the people on that list are not. They're certainly not. There wasn't any malfeasance involved in this. So I don't really know where the minister is going with this. As much as he might have expressed some of his goals, I don't see that the release of this list speaks to that objective.
So what we understand, and this is having spoken to the spokesperson earlier on, that there's been far too many people who've been pointing fingers at the department, suggesting lots of wastage, money wastage, right? And whether it's legal or illegal, both ways, okay? And one of their ways of that's the one thing. And then the second part of it, particularly around artists who've suggested that they've not been supported, right? And in the third case, we've had situations where, let's say in terms of those sports fans, and we know what's happened with the super fans, but there's also been sportsmen suggesting that money is going in the wrong direction. And they saying, in fact, this is their response to say, hold it, we're going to show you where our money is going. So we want to be very clear and transparent, and that would fall under the guise of good governance.
I suppose it does. That would be a transparent way of saying this is how the money was spent. And we mustn't forget also that any request for funding has to be passed through an adjudication committee. There'll be a panel of people who'd have to assess the application in accordance with the, with the funding policy and with the criteria that they apply before any monies are paid over. So I can understand that the minister would say, if you are making these allegations, let's just show you the list transparently. Although I'm not quite sure whether the analysis that we are all looking for has followed in the way that we were expecting.
What were you expecting?
That there would be some indication, at least, that here's the list. These are the entries that are of concern to us. These are the ones that raise some questions about whether the funding was justified or not. But I haven't seen that. Certainly, if you're going to play a PR game that says people have accused us as the department of not being fair in our funding, Here's a list. Go and take a look for yourself. I'm not quite sure what that achieves because, all those lists would be available through the department in any event.
Because one of the things we were discussing, Bridget and I, who host the show before me, is like, if you go through that list, it talks about 10,000, 20,000, 10,000, 10,000, but there's no context. So it's very difficult, to understand if somebody gets 10 and someone gets 70, it doesn't mean they're getting much more. We just don't know the story behind the story. And of course, this is regarding funding as opposed to contract work, which I think is a completely legitimate, different thing. In fact, both are legitimate, but they're two separate issues, aren't they? Yeah.
Very much, very much. And don't forget this initial round of funding, former Minister Natim Tetwa was criticized because people accused him of not keeping the funding window open long enough, and that a lot of people who needed the funding were desperately also looking for the data in order to access the online portal in order to make the applications. So what followed this, Ashraf, was another round of funding where people were putting in requests for project funding, and that's a different kind of a grant that was then being made available. And that's very different from the list that was released now that was showing that these were people who were due for compensation that related to the lockdown that we had gone through and cancelled contracts that people were facing. So that was a very different kind of grant allocation, and it doesn't speak precisely to what the minister was alluding to.
Now, let me just segue for a moment and bring in the thoughts about Makatsi. I mean, she's one of the more high-profile cases. She's won this BET award just a few days ago, in fact. And here's a clip where she, in fact, denied ever getting money from the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture.
I can't keep quiet because people are calling me to stop, to not keep quiet and not reply. I'm here. I betrayed them. I told them that I would keep quiet, but I slept. I'm like, I can't sleep. I can't allow to trend the whole South Africa, whereas the world, the whole country is waiting for the people to be revealed who was eating money. And people that are failing to reveal names, they start with me, and I've ever even ate any cent because of they feel like I'm quiet, I can't speak for myself. They take advantage. No one can speak for me. No one can fight for me. And then they have to use me as an example. No, I can't allow that. I can't allow that. I can't. Even now, they're calling. I can't answer any call. I can't do that. The same people that are calling me here, they want to manipulate me. I can't do that. To use me as an example, I cannot allow that. I didn't eat any money. They must reveal the real people that ate money for the department. They must reveal the real names for the people that were funded unlawfully. If I have to die for this, I must die.
Jack, I don't know. I mean, I'm listening to this, and we hear sports men and women who achieve, and they're not perfect human beings, but when they achieve, we celebrate them. Here's someone who just won an award a few days ago, and I'm not even suggesting she's right and wrong, but she's in absolute pain. It's very clear, isn't it?
Yeah, and it sounds to me, and she was obviously quite emotional in distress. So I'm not quite sure whether I heard it correctly or whether my interpretation is correct. But it sounds to me from what she is saying that she didn't waste anyone's money, and that she didn't take money that was not due to her. It sounded to me as if she was saying she's not the cause of wasting people's money.
Yeah, I mean, that's what she said. Basically, what she's also said is if her name is being put on that list, that's for work done, right? Which she's entitled to, and I would support that. Although people could legitimately apply for relief, for COVID relief, as you've suggested, she did not do that, and therefore her name should not be on that list. And that's something that I've put to the spokesperson for the department, and she said, well, they have to look into that issue because, I mean, that's a separate issue. And they two separate issues. I mean, you could have actually applied for relief funding, and you could still do legitimate business work and get paid, to do whatever, sing a national anthem, go into a music show, whatever it is. And you could also do project deals where you have a project that you propose, and if it's convincing enough, and they could support it, because if they don't support the projects, then who will support the projects anyway?
This is the reality, is that I think, as you suggest, Ashraf, we have started to confuse what was the COVID relief funding, what was the project grant funding, and what was a legitimate booking fee. And perhaps we need some clearer definitions coming out of the department, perhaps from the minister himself, to explain, where exactly does he place the malfeasance? Because I'm not sure. I suspect we are now guessing, which is the worst possible thing for us to do, because we are now looking at we are creating conspiracies. We are looking at a list that was re-released today by the minister, when in fact it was out in the public domain 4 years ago, and we are trying to analyze this list by filtering the minister's suspicions through this list, and we are trying to create conspiracies around it. And I'm not sure that this is justified right now. I think we perhaps need to take a step back. We need to ask the minister what exactly are his intentions, and whether it is, in fact, the right kind of data that needs to be analyzed in order to achieve what he wants, which is a transparent department. And we all support that.
Transparent and a department with lots of vigor and energy, and lots been said about the previous ministries. They've sort of been rather sort of moribund, right? So in that case, if you look at the bigger picture scenario, once all this gets cleared up, do you not agree that in fact a lot of what he's brought is tremendous energy in the last few days that suggests, in marketing speak, hey, I'm going to disrupt this industry for the benefit of everybody?
Yes, I see that. We all feel that energy. We are encouraged by it, and we can see that the minister wants to use the information at his disposal, the instruments at his disposal within the department itself and through social media. He wants to show people, he wants to demonstrate through actual work that he cares about his ministry, he cares about the work that his department does, cares about the mandate, and of course he's going to get everybody's support for that. I think the area that we all need to take some caution in is to be very clear about what it is we are trying to do, and to make sure that we are not inadvertently creating some kind of scandal out of issues that are perfectly legitimate and that can be explained by a sober and rational analysis of this data. So I think we have to be able to work with the minister to say we totally get the objectives. And as you suggest, Ashraf, if we take a step back, look at the bigger picture, and if we have to focus on the objectives that he has laid out, we will absolutely support that. And then through that, we will be able to work with him to identify the areas where there could possibly have been some wrongdoing. For example, if we are talking about funding opportunities that were manipulated, then we've got to look to the what was the funding policy, what were the criteria, who were the panelists who were sitting on the adjudication committees, how did they allocate certain funds to certain people, did they have was there possibility of a kickback? Because these things do happen, we know, in this country. So perhaps those are the areas that we need to interrogate as well. So it applies to both sides of that fence, doesn't it?
Well, I suggest you have a meeting with him soon. Cup of coffee, maybe.
He has expressed an intention to meet, and I'm looking forward to it. And certainly this is an area that we want to be able to raise with him, if only to show our support for his for something that we have been calling for, which is more transparency and accountability in the department.
Got that well, but of course you'll ask questions too, I'm sure of that. Jack Devnarine, thanks for your time. Certainly renowned actor in South Africa, but also heading up the South African Guild of Actors. Right. Further thoughts on the Department of Sports, Arts, Culture, headed by the Minister, Gayton McKenzie, and he's likely to, if he's being consistent, he's bound to tweet sometime later tonight as well, if not tomorrow morning. He will do so because he's been doing so every day in the last week or so.
In the heart of darkness, a beacon of light emerges. A brand new season is coming your way with your 2024 Miss South Africa Top 30. Hosted by our reigning queen, Miss South Africa, we embark on a transformative journey. Join us for the spectacular new season of Crown Chasers.
Crown Chasers is back.
Starts 29 June at 8:30 p.m. only on S3 Open Up.
Yeah, we can do this. It's been a long time coming. This deserves to grow.
It's a great business. If they don't like it, someone else will. And fund me so I can expand. Maybe I can offer them shares. I need to retain equity for staff. It's going to be good for recruitment. Yeah.
Possible begins with that one great idea. When Telkom enables entrepreneurs to make their ingenuity a reality, we grow local economies. Telkom. Possible begins here.
EFC is live this Thursday. One of the greatest mixed martial artists of Africa returns to the World Sports Betting Arena. Iga Smiley Kabesa has cemented his legacy in the record books as the Continental GOAT. Now he puts his lightweight title on the line against Humphrey King Cobra Malenga. EFC 115 live this Thursday. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel and DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Tell you what, if you're into tech, often it's Apple, it's Huawei, and it's certainly Samsung. And there's the launch of the Samsung's Galaxy Z Fold 6. We'll talk about that with the team from Samsung coming up shortly. Listen out for that. But in the meantime, let's talk to now Paul Schul, who's the managing executive at Schul's Schul's Consultings. We talked to him because, as part of the innovation hub that we talk about daily, many think that hacker, it's got like a negative connotation. It refers to some self-taught whiz kid or rogue programmer skilled at modifying computer hardware, effectively trying to do something wrong, I think, in the main. But it's clearly not the case. That may be the narrow view. There's a broader view that we need to be aware of, and Paul's going to highlight all of that for us. So, Paul, appreciate your time. Hi.
Hi, great. It's great to be back on in such short notice. Yes, I think you hit the nail on the head there. The term hacker, really just refers to a person who's using a system in a way slightly differently from how it was designed, or who's found a way to sort of shift things across. So, when Gaten McKenzie and his friends go and change the rims on motor cars, they're hacking the car together to do their spinning and whatnot. In the computing context, of course, hacking has to do with software engineering. It ties into designing electronic systems to do things a little bit differently to how they were originally intended. And pretty much every major innovative step in the progression of personal computing has been a product of what can be termed hacker culture. This idea of show me the system and I will figure out how to make it do something that I want it to be able to do. And so, there's two sort of approaches to this. The one is to see innovation as the driving force, and to create a world in which people are, and particularly children, are encouraged to be able to figure out how things work. And sometimes that means, causing a little bit of a need to repair. That's quite different, though, to a connotation that has been thrown onto the word hacker, particularly concerning computer systems in the enterprise space, which is the act of a person unlawfully accessing a computer system. And part of the reason why we talk about somebody who's unlawfully accessing a computer system like that as a hacker, of course, is because in order to unlawfully access a computer system, you have to be using it in a way that isn't part of its original design. So the skills that you acquire by figuring out how the system works are the same skills that you use to break the system to break into the system. So as with, it is not an offense to use a bolt cutter on your own door. If you lose your keys and you need to cut the lock, you are lock cutting. Lock picking is okay. But using a bolt cutter to access somebody else's home, that's a crime. That's breaking an entry. Now, it is true that there has, particularly in some contexts, been sloppiness on the parts of some people. And there has been this sort of belief among some people who think that they're very clever because they have certain skills. And they think that they are therefore entitled to break the system to see if they can break it. And that would be unlawful. So a prime example of conduct that probably would not be criminal, but is certainly problematic, was this morning, FlySafair Air were running an auction system on lots of tickets and so on. And somebody went and intentionally, flooded the bids with a fake bid. And it's quite clear that the person was thinking, I can come here and play around with it. And there, a similar sort of analogy to the problem that you've got is it's not a crime to have a bribe. It's not a crime to like the look of fire. It is a crime to set fire to, somebody else's ground, or to, just this idea that because I'm playing or I'm tinkering, I can impede on your rights. So even if there isn't a unlawful access to a system, if somebody is behaving badly or they are using somebody else's system in a way without that person's consent, that is, in my view, almost always a problem. The only place where this can become a little more intricate is when you look at institutions like a university, where the university can come down very hard and say, no, our computers are only to be used for X, Y, and Z. You therefore may not play with the system. But on the other hand, universities want to inspire innovation. So this conflict does come up in some contexts. But certainly, if we look at criminal activities, sort of cybercrime problem. For example, the Public Works Department, which I think is the reason this is in the public conscience at the moment. There you have clear criminal activities. So it's no different to the fact that somebody used a bolt cutter to break into the bank when they were stealing the money.
Yeah, point well made, yeah.
Thank you. It's a tool that people use. So, I believe we need to give serious commendation to the Minister and Deputy Minister in their handling of this. I think it was well investigated when the Deputy Minister picked up something, or the current Deputy Minister, but as Minister picked up something, he launched appropriate investigation. What I am not certain of is whether we've got the correct political will at the moment in this country to ensure that we don't relegate criminal activities that have got a cyber dimension to being somehow esoteric and therefore undealable.
Okay.
Or that we tell the public, no, this is different because it... So, one way of doing that, I think, is to tackle cybercrime in a similar manner to how commercial crime has been dealt with. For the Minister of Justice with the Department of Communications, to look into establishing a cybercrimes court and magistrates' offices, one court for the whole country initially, similar to the commercial crimes model. In fact, almost identical to the commercial crimes model.
Well, that's the challenge. Let's leave it at that. That's the challenge. Cybercrimes court, especially dealing with that. In the meantime, there's good hackers and there's bad hackers. You need to work out the difference between the two. Paul, Schul, appreciate your time from Schul's Consulting.
Thank you so much.
Talking about that issue about hackers and what they do, but not everything is negative, as you've heard, but there are concerns that you need to be aware about. We'll play some of the other voice notes and calls we've had related to some of the big issues that we are having today on the National Pulse. So do stay tuned. Let's get the news headlines now. It's 5:30 with Greg House.
Quick look at the headlines. The former Gauteng Health MEC, Dani Maklango, says she's consulting her lawyers. This after the inquest into the Life Isidameni tragedy found that she and the former Gauteng mental health head should be held responsible for the deaths of 144 mental health care users who died in 2016. DA MP Ian Cameron's been elected as the chairperson of Parliament's Police Portfolio Committee, and Western Cape authorities say evacuation orders have been issued in Citrusdale. More on that story and other news at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is queuing towards Crown Interchange. Linksfield Road eastbound in Edenvale has heavy traffic from the N3 highway towards First Avenue. Seven Road southbound is queuing through Senderwood. The N3 southbound in Bedfordview has oil spillage reported at Kiluli's Interchange. The road's closed, causing heavy delays. The N1 northbound in Midrand is slow moving towards Olifantsfontein Road exit, and the N1 southbound in Pretoria has a crash reported before Rigel Avenue. In KZN, the N3 westbound has a stationary vehicle before Pavilion Shopping Centre exit. The N2 southbound has a crash reported on the off-ramp to the M7 highway. Chris Hani Road westbound is queuing at the N2 highway, and the R102 southbound is slow-moving near Old North Coast Road. In the Free State, the N1 southbound has a truck crash recovery in that central Bloemfontein area reported. You're asked to expect delays and diversions. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound is queuing towards Hospital Bend. The M5 southbound is slow moving towards Racecourse Road. The M3 southbound is slow moving towards Rhodes Drive, and Spine Road southbound is queuing towards Strandfontein Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Right, to me, big stories.
Right, the big story for the day, Richards Bay FC chairman Jomo Biela believes that the club's new sponsorship deal worth 60 million rand for the next 3 years will go a long way towards keeping the team in top flight football. The Natal Rich Boys onboarded Parkway Gas for Africa as a front of shirt sponsor earlier today, with the club set to pocket 20 million rand per season. Since their promotion to the DStv Premiership, the KwaZulu-Natal side have been yearning for some financial injection in a demanding league with more commercial, or where commercial partners are absolutely necessary.
I'm not just a sponsor, I'm going to be a partner. And for me, partnership is not a loose word. Partnership means we need to see things, we need to have a vision as to where we are going with this, because by association, you really do not want a situation where this partnership is just, partnership is like marriage. We are into this thing for a long term, and therefore then we going to be pursuing other discussions further. I've already planned to meet the municipality. Let's deal with the facilities that are here for the longer term. Let's deal with development in a proper way. So it's going to be partnership, and that discussion and going further, we don't know how far it's going to unroll itself.
England will try to reach their second straight Euros finals, while the Netherlands, who are also looking to reach their second final, will rely on their attacking style to win the semi-final. England went 22 years between 1996 and 2018 without reaching a semi-final, including making it to the Final Four at the World Cup in Russia 6 years ago. And England have now reached that stage 3 times. And as the only specialist left back in Gareth Southgate's squad, Luke Shaw's return has been eagerly awaited, with a lot anticipating for him to start off bench. In rugby, South African Rugby Union President Mark Alexander has pleaded with the newly appointed Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Gayton McKenzie, to immediately deal with the deadlock between his department and the Department of Basic Education in running school sports. Alexander says it remains a challenge for them to bring immediate change in public schools because of red tape in running school sports in the country.
There are so many kids in the Eastern Cape that don't have access to nutrition, that goes to school without a decent meal. There are so many other Siokolisis. If we can make a difference in those lives, and that's why we need to fight the school thing. Kids must play sport in school, any kind of sport. Doesn't have to be rugby. It's important to have them sport, to playing sport, because that makes our job easier. When we get there, the kid is least doing first aid at school. We don't do first aid at our schools, at our public schools.
Well, it's exactly 16 days to go to the Olympics, and South African sprinter Kani Simbini and gymnast Caitlin Roosgrant will carry the South African flag at the opening ceremony of the Paris Olympic Games. Simbini, competing in his third Olympic Games, is one of Team South Africa's medal prospects in Paris as he looks to compete in the 100-meter and 4x100-meter relay, while Roosgrant, who's marking her second Olympic appearance, has made history as the first gymnast to be named a flag bearer, an honor she considers as the pinnacle of her career. And earlier on, Ashraf, you were asking me if I do remember some of the previous
because I don't, yes.
Yeah, and I did say Chetler Klo was one of them.
Yeah.
This was in 2020. He was one, and Phumelela Mbande from hockey side. Okay. And then at one stage, it was Wade van Niekerk and alongside Connor Wilson, who is in alpine skiing, and Caster Semenya at one stage was also one of them.
I remember that. Yeah. So generally it's high-profile athletes And it would have been someone who's done well before, right?
Absolutely.
Generally, it seems like that. Yeah. Okay, got that. Thank you. Anything else?
In tennis,
Yes.
yeah, 2022 Wimbledon champion Elena Rybakina is through to the semis of the Wimbledon with straight sets 6-3 and 6-2 win over Elena Svitolina, while Novak Djokovic is also through to the semis after Alex de Minaur withdrew from their last 8 clash with a hip injury. But that's it. It's a wrap from my side for now. More on other sports tomorrow morning with Zaikhan.
Okay, and your goodbye?
I am Tumin Kapele Mudimukyo.
There we are. Thank you. We'll do that again, yes, tomorrow. But also top sport coming up after, 7 o'clock with Michael Abramson. Do not miss that.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Let's certainly get the facts and figures regarding money with the MoneyWeb market update. As always, Jimmy is in the hot seat. Hi, Jimmy.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. How are you?
I'm pretty well indeed, thank you. Going to Cape Town tomorrow, just so that you know that. Just going to Cape Town tomorrow.
It's a very risky time for you to do that. Have you seen the weather on that
I'm
side?
just putting it on record. I'm going to Cape Town tomorrow. That's all.
Hopefully the plane lands safely. I don't know what's happening in Cape Town. It seems they're having the worst weather at the moment, and it doesn't. Hopefully it gets better. Hopefully it gets better by the time you get there.
Tomorrow's level 8 tomorrow, whatever that means. So that means it's worse than today. That's all.
I suppose level 8 is better than stage 8 load shedding, right? So
I don't know. I'll let you know when I come back. Right, go ahead with your numbers.
Yes, we've got a couple of numbers to look into. It doesn't seem like such a good day on our local front. It looks as though all markets are in green with the exception of South African markets and possibly Asian markets. But the second day of testimony was concluded today by Fed Chair Jerome Powell in the US, and so that sent markets moving quite a bit. Obviously, the sentiment around that is concentrated around when we're going to get those interest rate cuts. But what we have on the show today is we're going to be taking a look at the concept of synthetic identity fraud. This is something that is a new development that's seemingly targeting South Africans and individuals around the world, where people are creating a fake or adopting your identity through illicit means and using your identity to commit fraud. We've got a conversation with Santam around that, and then we've got a conversation with Alan Gray around investing in offshore markets and identifying efficiencies in offshore markets where you can take advantage of those. And then we're going to be taking a look at some interesting developments from the South African Reserve Bank where it relates to African Bank. They've written down their stake in African Bank, so they've impaired that stake by close to R1 billion, and that's now brought into question a lot of things around what we know about African Bank. We know they had planned to go and list the business, and there was obviously that unbundling of the shareholding, and the central bank was looking to exit that investment. So we're going to look at that and see what to make of that and what it means for all the investors involved there, the other banks involved, and potentially you and I as future investors when they do eventually list. And then because it's Wednesday, we've got our Executive Lounge feature on a Wednesday. We've got a conversation with Gavin Gaelig, who is the CEO of Consult by Momentum. He's joining me to give us a sense of what he gets up to, what he enjoys doing, and what he does beyond the day-to-day work. So that's coming up in our Executive Lounge segment. But as I said, markets have not had a good day on the local front, and Henko Creer has been keeping an eye on those markets for us. He joins me now to give us a quick summary of what's been happening locally and internationally. Good evening, Henko. Thanks as always for keeping an eye on the markets. It seems as though only the US is in the green.
Yes, Jimmy. Good evening to you, Jimmy, and to Ashraf and to me, and of course, good evening to all of our listeners. Jimmy, yes, the US markets, but as well as the European stocks, they all finished in the green today. It was only us here on the local front that finished in the red. In the US at the moment, the Dow Jones doing very well, trading 0.3% stronger, the S&P 500 0.4% up, and the Nasdaq winning 0.6%. And then European stocks, there we saw the DAX and the CAC 40 finishing 0.9%. That was also 1%, almost 1% stronger today, followed by the FTSE 100 in London, which gained 0.6%. And then, unfortunately, we lost a bit out today. Luckily, fortunately, not by much. We finished, that's the JSE's All-Share Index, finished 0.2% weaker at a lower level of 80,445 points. The industrial index also finished 0.2% down. The financial index by a bit more than that. It finished 0.7% weaker. But the resources index was the only sub-index that finished in the green today, and it gained 0.6% today. A company like Alphaman had a wonderful day. It finished 5% stronger, followed by DRD Gold and MAS. They each gained 2.5%. Sappi, Pick n Pay, as well as Anglo Gold, they each finished today 2.2% stronger. Telkom and Implats, as well as Abane Stillwater, they each gained 1.5%. On the negative side, Sasol unfortunately lost 4.2% today. Then the Life Healthcare Group, as well as Netcare, together and hand in hand today finished 3.5% weaker. WBHO and Tungela each lost 2.5%, and Kumba, Old Mutual and Remgro finished the day 2% weaker. If we have a quick look at the 10 largest companies on the JSE, you'd find companies like AB InBev, Glencore and Anglo. They each gained 0.8%, but unfortunately Standard Bank lost 1.5% today. Then if we have a look at the exchange rate, at the moment, 18 Rand and 13 cents to the US dollar, 19 Rand 63 to the euro, 12 Rand 20 to the Australian dollar, and 23 Rand and 28 cents to the British pound. On the commodities market, the price of gold trading at $2,375 an ounce, silver sitting at $31, platinum and the price of palladium now exactly the same and trading at $990 an ounce, and the oil price is currently $85.30 a barrel. Then lastly but not least, the price of a Bitcoin is still $57,500, and that is 1,077,000 Rand. And Jimmy, that's how the markets performed.
Thank you very much for that update, Henku. We're going to be looking at these and other stories just after 6. We also got CPI data out from China. We've got CPI data out from the US tomorrow. We're going to look at these and see how we make sense of these potential market movers as we go on into the rest of the week. But for now, Ashraf, back to you and the team. We'll be back a little later on.
Thank you so much for that, Jimmy. And of course, just to confirm, why am I going to Cape Town? It's very much up your alley, Jimmy and the team. It's for the Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking Conference, looking at unlocking Africa's growth. And I'm sure that's something you're very switched on with. If, in fact, well, how do we do that? It's a big question. Right, let's get to calls after this.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, lots of people commenting on some of the range of issues. In fact, we've had less on life Isidimeni. I'm not saying don't or do, but I'm just surprised. I would have thought more people would have responded to that particular issue, considering findings made against the MEC for Health in Gauteng and the medical doctor in charge. Colin in Cape Town, hi.
Hi, I think so many people forgot about that case, Ashraf.
Well, the judgment was today, so they can't forget about it today.
I'm just saying they gave up hope. Ashraf, I was the comment about arts and culture, sports, arts and culture.
Yeah.
You know, I heard a voice message at up-and-coming little school kids, college kids, school kids that can't afford the upcoming Springboks and future gymnastics and things like that. They battle to get money. So, I was thinking, if a school sees an up-and-coming youngster in any sport, no matter what it is, or musical or anything, it's got potential. It represents, for argument's sake, your province. If you go to Cape Town,
yeah. But what's your point, Colin? I mean,
my point is, why don't the school sort of apply to the arts and cultures and say, look here, we got a youngster. He's going to Johannesburg. We can't afford. Nobody got money. Stuff like that.
Okay, maybe they haven't. Maybe they've had no money. There's not enough. There's been also budget cuts for things like policing, by the way, in the past. So just be aware of that. That's the reality. It's not a good thing to hear, but that's the truth. Colin, thanks for that call. Let's get to Sello in Limpopo. Hi.
Thank you, Ashraf.
Go ahead, Colin. Sello, what's your point?
Ashraf, why are we mixing morals and laws in our debate most of the time?
All right, tell me more.
Because we are not we are not a nation that we are ruled by a biblical something. I've been ruled by rule of law. I'm talking about in terms of just profit. So when it suits us, Ashraf, we use morals to certain people. When it doesn't suit us, we don't talk about morals. The former DM, the lady Engelbrecht, he was also investigated, and it was been found that he deleted some crucial evidence on his laptop. I've never seen or heard the moral issue when he was elected to parliament. Nothing. So these things of targeting certain people, and then we go with it. I think it's so absurd, and it is just a waste of time because we have moral. It's fine, we can talk about it, Ashraf, but we have laws, not morals. We have laws that govern this country.
Okay.
And if the law permits that Ashraf can be in this institution, let the law take its course. That's what we normally practice in this radio station. Let the law take its course. The law is taking its course. Now we're complaining we use morals.
All right.
There's no one has morals in that parliament, Ashraf.
Okay, got that. So basically the law is impeached the judge, but the law also allows that same person to serve as an MP and therefore to serve on a committee that just happens to be overlooking judges. And you're saying that's exactly how it is at the moment. Don't get into the morality of it all. I hear you. All right? Thanks for that, Salo. Well, Salo's certainly got us thinking, well, you know what? It is the national pulse. And this show is a reflection. It's not my reflection. We reflect what you are thinking. And you could be someone from Khalishiwe. You could be someone from, King Williamstown. Names may have changed, right? You could be someone from the Northwest region, wherever you are, or Cape Town or Joburg, wherever. We reflect all those things. Further thoughts, again, the former judge, Slope, going ahead.
Hi, Ashraf. You're talking to Comrade Cairo Sima in Limpopo. Look, I think we've been unfairly emotional on this matter of Judge Slope. I want you to show me, or anyone to quote me, an act of parliament or an act, section by section, or a rule of parliament that says Slope is precluded from occupying a position or chairing a subcommittee in parliament owing to his impeachment. Let's not be emotional. Show me, quote, an act. Let's not use common sense here.
Okay. Let's not use... Did you say let's not use common sense? I'm just going to pick up another one that relates to the Department of Sports and Culture.
Hi, Ashraf. Hi. You know what I've learned is that you can't satisfy everybody. Mackenzie will never satisfy the whole South Africa. Let everyone leave Mackenzie to do his job with peace. I trust him. I don't want to lie. I trust him. He's right. He's the right candidate for that job. Even though we wanted him in the safety or in the Department of the Police, we wanted him. But even here, he is suiting very right. So he will never satisfy the whole South Africa. Let them rest.
Okay, got that. I trust him. Do you trust him? In fact, which minister of the new ministers at this point in time, like they're 1 or 2 weeks into their jobs, that you give an A to because I just like how this person's doing things? Is there anybody? You can, maybe we'll have no time for WhatsApping, but you can tweet it out. So go to SFM Radio, tag me, tag SFM Radio. I will pick it up, use that, the National Pulse. We talk Samsung in a moment.
Channel the forgiving spirit of Utata Madiba on Afternoon Express, Tuesday at 6 p.m. on S3, as community development practitioner Taryn Liebau shares how he rebuilt a nation with the power to forgive. We discuss the magic of making a child's dream come true and cook up Madiba's favorite oxtail with umngusho. That's Afternoon Express this Tuesday at 6 p.m. only on S3. Repeat Sundays at 8:30 a.m.
In South Africa, 1 in 5 children under the age of 13 is overweight or obese. Sign a petition to demand strong warning labels on unhealthy packaged food. And don't forget to catch the next episode of Chew on This at healer.org on Thursday, 27 June from 3 p.m. Young people tell us how big food companies are feeding them lies.
What's up, good people? It's Bulela Podisa, the girl from next door that you can call friend. This is Deal or No Deal Celebrity. Catch us every Saturday at 6 p.m.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Tell you what, I've been looking on social media in particular, and I've been very, very aware of the amount of conversations people are having, not about the Minister of Sport or Arts and Culture, but about the Galaxy phone, in particular Galaxy Z Fold 6. So let's find out more about this global launch, I understand, that's taking place today. With me is Justin Yu, who's the Vice President of Mobile at Samsung South Africa. Justin, good chatting to you once again. Hi.
Ashraf, great to be chatting to you again.
Yeah, it's been a long, long time, but okay, good reason to talk to you, right? So, of course, it's a day of celebration for you guys, I suppose, because there's a big launch.
It was indeed. We're incredibly excited about today. It's where we unpacked the Galaxy Z Fold 6 as well as the Flip 6. But really what stood out for me was the broader product set that came with it in terms of the Watch 7 and the Buds 3. And really what linked all of this was our Galaxy AI platform. And this AI capability that is now extending across not just handsets, but to the various wearable devices, and then how that integrates back into applications like Samsung Health. So this was a real game changer, and I think so far well received.
Well, I mean, we hear that in terms of, and we're very aware of Samsung rather revolutionizing the mobile industry with many things. You talked about the foldables, but let's then talk about the impact of AI and what it does for your product range.
So we see this generative AI being pervasive across a broad number of the features there. So whether it's improving the images that I take, the quality of the photographs, we can now utilize our S Pen to draw onto those images and add additional context that wasn't there prior, and AI knows what we're trying to incorporate. So these are some great tools that we have. But particularly, we've had a big focus of late on health. We love, as consumers, knowing, our health status. How well am I sleeping? What's my blood pressure? My ECG, from a cardio perspective. This is now being brought together by the phone that's doing the AI on-device calculations and capability, and the sensors that sit on our watches and on the buds. And this is now telling us, how do I get better sleep? How do I get, what are my energy levels? And it's actually giving us an energy score. So we're now able to really sort of get the best insight from the technology around us to help improve our lives. And then obviously all this is delivered back to us on an incredible phone, being that Fold 6, which gives you the best of a slim bar type phone, and you simply, when you want a broader screen, open it up and there it is in all its glory.
And who would it be used for? I mean, what sets it apart in terms of end user? Who would find most appeal having that Fold 6?
So very much focusing on productivity in the Fold 6 category. There's it's clearly for a business user, those who are wanting to have the flexibility of a normal smartphone, but then open it up and get your Excel spreadsheets and the like on the broader screen, or video for that matter. The Flip 6, however, that's more, that's really aimed at a younger audience, very fashion-oriented, but again, giving you that benefit of being able to do almost everything from the external screen on the smaller flip-type phone, or opening it up into a full-size bar type.
I mean, I suppose, here's the issue. I mean, how much of innovation is enough innovation in a globally challenging market? Clearly, I mean, there are competitors trying to chip away at market share. So again, how much innovation is enough here?
Oh, definitely trying to chip away. So these phones definitely, improved cameras on board, bigger batteries, longer battery life. The processing capability has jumped up exponentially around that. Really, where we've utilized or the differentiator comes in through Galaxy AI. And what's unique about this for Samsung is that we have, through our partnership with Google, is the cloud-based AI capability. So when you use things like circle to search or anything that involves sort of browsing the web, as well as the onboard AI capability, so where I use live call translation and the like, I want those calls to be private, to be mine. The phone is now powerful enough to do that on the device and do real-time translation. And again, we respect that privacy of the user and making sure that information is fully within your control.
And I mean, Samsung is the leader in the foldable market or foldables market. I mean, that's evident. Tell me about that journey.
Sorry, I lost you slightly.
I was
there.
saying Samsung is this leader in the foldables market. Tell me about that journey to establish yourself as that.
Yeah. So, incredibly, I mean, we started this journey back in 2019, and we're now in our 6th iteration of the product. And really what you've seen now is that the screens have become tougher. These phones can handle life's bumps and bruises. We've got our dual rail hinge that absorbs the impact, and all these fancy terms there. But really, we've listened to the consumers, what they're looking for, improved brightness in the screens. That's been addressed there. And again, you want something that's going to work with you all day long, so that battery life and that processing capability is paramount. So I think, Samsung has the advantage that we don't only make handsets, we make screen technologies. You see that in our monitors, in our TVs. We have the audio capabilities that is found in our speaker systems, in our buds and that, and that's brought into the devices. So packaging that together, we're able to leverage the very best of internal capabilities, and then again, partnering with people or companies such as Google, which are at the very top of their game, to bring that as a consolidated product to market.
Okay, before we wrap up, just quick thoughts on in terms of cost factors, if you can, and obviously the option of trade-ins are available, right? Tell me about that.
Trade-in is a phenomenal product or solution that we bring into this market. So you can get up to 15,000 Rand trade-in on your old device. So there's certain qualifying bands. But if you were to bring in, for example, you had a Fold 5 from last year, you bring that in, no matter if it's got scratches on it or anything, as long as it switches on, we will give you 15,000 Rand. So we've really taken the pain out of trade-in and made it simple for all.
Okay,
But for that, we've worked with the mobile operators to bring some incredible offers to market. So
that sounds
something
good
for everybody.
And I don't have to tell people where to go because I think they know where Samsung is. They're just sort of available everywhere, pretty ubiquitous. Just quick one in 30 seconds. What was the launch like today?
It was great. It was hosted in Paris, so we live streamed it here, and Paris being the home city of the 2024 Olympic Games, but it also represents Samsung's 3rd decade of partnership with the Olympic Games. So really sort of a symbolic occasion for us.
Okay. Yeah. That's where we leave it. Justin Hume, thanks so much. Certainly going to have a look at all those products you've mentioned with greater interest now. And who knows, I may be tempted. Somebody else may be tempted. Maybe all of us are tempted. Much appreciate your time. So Samsung Galaxy Foldables redefines the mobile experience and breaks the mold by offering 2 distinct form factors with clear benefits to customers, from the thinnest yet toughest design that's the most portable fold ever and the most powerful flip ever. Galaxy Z series owners find values that fit their lifestyle. Get yourself Samsung's latest devices, the Galaxy Z Fold X. Hopefully you got all of that important information. Lots more to come on all the shows on SAFM today, all through the night, from sport to big current affairs shows, 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock. Do not miss all of that. But right now, first things first, as I say thank you to you. Let's get the news at 6.
Former MEC found responsible for Life Isidameni tragedy, and the NATO summit gets underway in the US. Good evening. The former Gauteng Health MEC